Farmers fight back as they take to the streets today to protest over the Chancellor's inheritance tax raid.
With warnings, turnout could be as high as 40,000 people and hundreds of officers on standby to keep the peace.
Now that's as the Chancellor faces a backlash as she tells farmers they must cough up to fund the NHS.
The Prime Minister cozies up to China as he meets with his counterpart at the G20 summit in Rio de Janeiro, becoming the first British PM to do so since Theresa May.
Donald Trump announces controversial plans to use the military to deport illegal migrants.
It's 1,000 days since Russia invaded Ukraine. With hopes of a ceasefire, President Donald Trump is preparing to take power. This morning, we're asking whether the president-elect is the man to bring world peace.
Jungle life as I'm a Celeb campmates get teary-eyed, but find out more later.
And in the sport, good results for Scotland and the Northern Ireland in the Nations League. Spurs' Rodrigo Bentancur gets a 7-match ban, and Rafa Nadal could play his last ever match today.
Very wintry flavour to the weather this morning. Some frost, some ice, and yes, in places some snow. For many, though, it will be a sunny day. Just don't expect it to be very warm. Join me later for a full forecast.
Hello, a very good morning to you on this Tuesday morning. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster, and you're tuned in to GB News Breakfast.
Just talking to the guys, did you feel the cold last night? Did you feel it?
No.
Chilly, actually, yeah. But it was torrential rain as I was driving in, and I just thought, well, look, if anyone can withstand this kind of weather, it's the farmers. But it's not nice weather for a protest today.
No.
Absolutely raining cats and dogs this morning. Horrid.
4 degrees.
Yeah. Although I had a worry with the rain because I had to let Dudley out, and Dudley hates having his paws dried. And if I dry his paws, then he may go for me. Oh. So at sort of 3 o'clock in the morning, it's not a good thing.
Why do you bother drying his paws?
Because I'll get told off if he then gets up on the bed and then my wife sees all these paw prints. I'll get blamed for it.
What's more scary, your wife or Dudley the dog?
Or the dog. So, yeah.
Difficult dilemma at 3 a.m.
Yes, barking coming from both sides.
What did you go for?
I went with, you know what, I'll end up with cut hands. I'll be disaster. I'll just make him walk around on the towel for a while. So
good idea.
So kind of like both.
But whatever goes wrong, it will be your fault.
Exactly. Well, look, you know, if I keep the dog happy and my wife happy, then everybody...
Then you're a winner.
Well, everybody's happy.
Apart from the farmers.
Thousands of them are today gathering in Westminster. They're going to protest over the recent changes to inheritance tax.
And among those expected to gather is the influential farmer Jeremy Clarkson, plus the Reform leader Nigel Farage. Until
now, farmers have been exempt from paying inheritance tax, but now Elon Musk has commented saying Britain is going full Stalin over these tax raids.
Well, GB News correspondent Will Hollis has been looking ahead to today's protest.
In farming, the day begins at dawn. An early start for Ollie. His family has owned land here in South Leicestershire since the 1960s.
So we're now with our main herd of beef suckler cows. They're all still out in the fields because we had a dry November.
But under new rules around inheritance tax, he feels his livelihood is at risk.
I think we'll see severe economic impacts within villages and market towns. You know, there'll be a trickle effect from agricultural activity into the wider economy, and it'll be quite negative. And obviously food supply will drop off.
In the autumn budget, the Chancellor announced changes to inheritance.
We will reform agricultural property relief and business property relief. From April 2026, this will ensure that we continue to protect small family farms and with three-quarters of claims unaffected by these changes.
For decades, farmers have been exempt from the end-of-life tax. On agricultural and business assets worth more than £1 million, farmers must now pay a 20% tax. The National Farmers Union thinks the changes will cripple family farms. Tom Bradshaw is president of the NFU.
There will be farms that end up having to sell the whole farm because the business is no longer viable on the back of this tax.
You want them to stop with this process of introducing inheritance tax?
They have to immediately reduce the pressure, which means either stop it or pause it while they come forwards with a full consultation.
The government says the tax reforms ensure wealthier estates and the most valuable farms pay their fair share toward public services. 10,000 farmers are abandoning their tractors and descending on London in protest.
I think they're growing really well, actually, aren't they?
Better, don't they?
Back in Leicestershire, Ollie and his wife Rebecca fear an uncertain future. They hope they can one day pass the farm down to their young sons.
We're very passionate about our family farm, and being able to continue having that stewardship, that ownership of the land, to be able to pass it to future generations is really important.
Rural Britain is coming to the capital. Will Hollis, GB News, Leicestershire.
Let's find out more from Will. We go to him live. He's joining those farmers heading to London. Will, good morning to you. What's the mood?
Good morning. Well, it's cold, it's wet and rainy, but these are the conditions that farmers are used to. You'll see, for anybody that's watching on television, that there's no light right now. The sun hasn't come up, but most farmers will have already started their day's work. But hundreds of coaches will be bringing tens of thousands of farmers from around the four nations to the capital, London, today in protest against the government's proposed plan to introduce inheritance tax on farming assets for the first time in about 4 decades. What we're expecting today is not tractors lining the streets. We're not expecting to see pig slurry covering Downing Street, but farmers raising their voices in protest against what they think will be crippling to their industry. Where we are right now is outside of the National Farmers Union headquarters in Spalding, Lincolnshire. Lincolnshire is often called the breadbasket of Britain because about 10% of all the food that we get in our supermarkets and enjoy around our family tables comes from this county. So the farmers here really do have a stake in their future. But I've been hearing from farmers across my region, the East Midlands, but we know that on GB News over the last few weeks we've heard of farmers that are part of a family business, a tradition where 3, 4, maybe even 5 generations have worked the same or similar parts of land in their community, and now they feel that that may be taken away from them. Essentially how it works is there is something called agricultural property relief, up to £1 million. So any assets that are passed down that are worth less than £1 million will not be taxed. But as soon as farming assets are worth £1 million, that's when the Treasurer will be coming looking for 20% from farmers at their end of their life. What farmers say to me is that a single combine harvester can be worth £1 million. Assets on a farm can be worth tens of millions of pounds. And they say that while there may be a lot of money in farming, in terms of cash, there's not a lot. And the president from the NFU told me yesterday that this could destroy family farming. What's happening in London today? Well, around 1,800 farmers that are members of the NFU will be lobbying their MPs and opposition MPs that maybe don't represent them in their constituency at Westminster. But there's also a huge rally of tens of thousands of other farmers who will be at Westminster Terrace, and they will be raising their voices. And like you said earlier, Isabel and Eamonn, there will be some famous faces in there, including Jeremy Clarkson. And I think this is going to be the story that really takes hold of the day.
Well, your face will be there too. You keep us posted throughout the morning. Will, we look forward to that. Thank you very much indeed. James Price joins us in the studio. James is a former Chief of Staff and Special Advisor to Nadhim Zahawi there. The thing is, Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, she's trying to take the moral high ground on this one, and front page headline Daily Telegraph, and she's saying these farmers must pay. They must pay, but because of them, the NHS is in such dire condition. I would tell her to stick it up her backside. Absolutely. What's it got to do with the farmers, the state of the NHS?
It's absolutely extraordinary, this whole story, and I apologise in advance if I lose my usual cool, sleeky exterior over this, because, as you say, it's just it's just astonishing. There was a story yesterday that the NHS was spending 500 million quid or so extra on locum GPs because they've got a whole mess with how they recruit and hold on to GPs. They're spending all this money to keep them going. That's about how much money even the government admits that this change to hit farmers will cost. So you fix that one issue, you don't need to do this. So why are they really doing this? And I'm afraid it's not that dissimilar, as Elon Musk says, to the kind of Stalin policy of de-kulakization. The kulaks were the kind of slightly wealthier peasants in the interwar period that the Communist Party and the Soviet Union went after, liquidating the kulaks, destroying them, destroying the family farms, collectivising them all in the power of the state. And why is that? Because rural communities aren't the sort of people who back the Labour Party.
I mean,
that's pure class war.
Yeah, we're used to so desperately seeing this line from the Labour Party that they don't change their mind. They are totally inflexible on this. The Prime Minister said over the weekend, "I will defend this all day long." Obviously, he's out overseas today, so he won't have to. But they are saying that they've committed $5 billion extra to farming in the budget. They believe that this is fair and proportionate. They're already treated better than the rest of us when it comes to inheritance tax. They say it must be used to fund public services, big question marks around that, and that 50% of food in the public sector is to be produced by British farmers, which will be a big boost to them. So they should be grateful for this, should they not?
The fact that the government doesn't understand the impact that this policy is going to have, and as the leader of the NFU, and by the way, really good on the National Farmers Union, as we were joking earlier, probably the only union that Labour isn't in bed with, but the fact that this guy is actually standing up and saying the truth, rather than that kind of, oh, well, on the one hand this, on the other hand that other lobby groups feel the need to try and do to keep government on side. Good on them for just coming out and saying, and calling a spade a spade.
But how dare she blame the woes of the NHS on farmers?
Yeah, well, exactly right. I mean, because, knowing Rachel Reeves's glittering CV as we do, she obviously must have spent 20 years as a farmer, just as she was probably, Prime Minister of Norway, as well as being an economist at the... Oh, no, she wasn't that, was she?
She's just economical with the truth,
CV.
James, rather than being a chief economist.
Perfect line.
It's a funny one, isn't it? They just aren't going to change their mind. I mean, will this protest do anything? I mean, it just seems...
Why couldn't she say, thank you to the farmers for funding our missiles for Ukraine? Because that's about all this is going to raise, about 7 million quid.
Yeah, and again, I think that the idea that they will have to reverse ferret on this and give up doesn't seem likely just now. I suspect this protest will be, which I'm going to go on, by the way. I think it's very important, as many people that can just take a bit of time off work, go and do that. But if you look at some of the protesting that's happened on the continent, it's become a big move. A lot of this is sort of net zero inspired as well. In the Netherlands, there was a big push to try and impose a lot of net zero policies on Dutch farmers. Well, they've now won major seats in the recent election and have, I think, government ministers in place in the Netherlands. So there is a kind of rural force in there. And you've got 100 or so Labour MPs who actually represent rural communities. I'm sure they all had to rush out and buy brand new clean wellies for the first time.
But
they'll start to realise.
Have done a bit of maths, and only 7 of those rural constituencies, they think, by their calculations, are under threat from this particular outrage. I mean, it's early on in the electoral cycle, obviously. Quite. But, there's a lot more that you'd think would be sort of worried, but only 7, according to the Telegraph.
I think that with the way that campaigns work, that this stuff will pick up a head of steam. And you've got somebody like Jeremy Clarkson and the enormous success of Clarkson's Farm, which is, I think, Amazon's most successful show ever. It's, this much vaunted soft power that the Labour Party seems to care about so much. It wants soft power around the world so much that it's giving away sovereign territory and kowtowing to the Chinese, as we're about to talk about. But if you want soft power, look at the effect of Clarkson's Farm on this. And you saw, someone like a media figure, as Donald Trump really was, what happened when he got involved in politics. Just imagine if Jeremy Clarkson says, do you know what, OK, I'm going to throw my hat into the ring in politics. What a grenade that would be.
So in the court of public opinion, you think Starmer against Clarkson, it's a no contest, really. Clarkson will walk that.
I think he'd absolutely walk it. I mean, Keir Starmer has already admitted, he doesn't have a favourite novel, he doesn't have a favourite song, he doesn't dream. He's the most grey, bland, sort of destructive force.
Team. He's there all the time.
Yeah, exactly. That's right, of course. In the fancy director's box, isn't it? These guys were elected into office basically by default. My old party, the Conservatives, lost that election, and we know all the many reasons why that is. Labour didn't win it, but they're walking around as if they are supremely popular. They've already become less popular than Rishi was at his absolute nadir.
How on earth have they managed to do that? We know the instances and the subjects that have contributed to all of that, but surely a blind man on a galloping horse would see that they were in trouble with, things like the winter fuel payments and whatever. So why pursue them?
So I genuinely think that 14 years out of government and the kinds of people that they've been selecting and electing, these people have just got it into their heads, well, because we're Labour, and a lot of them do sound slightly adenoidal like that, because we're Labour, we're good people, and therefore they're allowed to do terrible things. And because the Tories are evil, it was the Tories deliberately trying to destroy the country. And they sort of think, well, I'm going to come in now and everything is going to be fine, and all this is just evil right-wing confected nonsense. They have yet to realise what a reckoning is coming to them.
Yeah, and often, I mean, tell me if you agree with this, but it often seems that these kind of class-based policies, whether it be on private schools or on farmers who they see as these wealthy landowners, actually ends up affecting the people that Labour should be representing the most. So these children in good state schools will be squeezed out because house prices will go up around them, and it's the same with the farmers. The food prices are going to go up in the shops as a result, and those who can least afford it will suffer. The people that Labour should be representing.
You are completely right. The most powerful law in all of politics is the law of unintended consequences. And this is the problem all the way through government. The Treasury in particular, that it says, right, this money will raise, this policy will raise this much money. But it never takes into account all this, what you call the second order effects of this. So if you say, right, I'm going to put up this tax, go, well, I'll take my kids out of this school then. As you said, put them into the state school system, that will have more pressures there. If you say, I'm going to put this tax up on capital gains, OK, I'm not going to bother building my company in the UK. I'm going to go to Donald Trump's America, so for all the bad there, it's very business-friendly. Or I'm going to go to Dubai, where there's no income tax. You know, all these sorts of things. And what's going to happen? Those of us who are left at the end of this Labour term are going to be poorer, weaker, less well-fed, clearly, and they're damn sight more miserable by the looks of things.
Those are the views of James Price. James, we thank you for those. Political commentator. Share your opinion of what James has had to say with us today, and that's gbnews.com/have-your-say.
Yes, and our poll of the day, here's the question, and we'll give you that results in Martin Daubney's show. It's, should farmers be given special exemption on inheritance tax? We'll have the results of that also at the end of breakfast, just after 9 o'clock. To get involved, you just go to our website, gbnews.com/poll.
The thing is, none of us ever noticed they had special relief on inheritance tax. And now that it's pointed out to us on how puny the relief is, basically, and yet it will destroy family holdings and things like that. Big business will become involved again in farming. Do you have a view on that? Is that good, bad, or are you indifferent about it? Here's the weather. Alex Deakin.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. For many of us, a distinctly wintry flavour to the weather this morning. There are ice and snow warnings in place. For quite a few of us, though, it will be a fine and sunny day, but don't expect any warmth. Sleet and snow has been crossing parts of the UK through the night, edging away from eastern areas this morning, but some pretty unpleasant conditions on some roads, and the snow showers continue to feed in through the day across northern Scotland. Staying a bit damp with outbreaks of rain across the southwest of England, but for many areas it'll brighten up with some sunshine, but that northerly wind bringing a real chill. Temperatures struggling at 3 or 4 degrees for many, and feeling even colder when you add on the strength of that wind, which will continue to bring snow showers in across northern Scotland. Significant accumulations of snow over the hills at lower levels, not huge amounts, but still some disruption is likely, with a few centimetres possible, and much more than that over the mountains. A few snow flurries may continue to edge into northern parts of Northern Ireland, so again potentially turning icy here as temperatures tumble. Generally a clear evening across much of Wales and the Midlands and southern England. Staying quite cloudy across the far southwest of England. Some rain showers coming in here, and then as we go through this evening and overnight, we'll see a few more of these showers coming down the eastern side of England. Again, a real mix of rain close to the coast, but some sleet and snow likely inland, particularly over hills. A few of those flurries coming into parts of Wales and Northern Ireland, so again could turn icy as temperatures tumble well below freezing in rural spots, and again feeling even colder on Wednesday with that brisk wind, bringing a few showers across eastern areas and some for Northern Ireland and Wales, and plenty more of those wintry showers keeping going into northern Scotland. Again, for a good chunk of the country though, it's a dry, fine, sunny day to come tomorrow, but it will again be on the cold side with temperatures really struggling. 7 or 8 in the southwest, but for many other areas 2 or 3.
Woo! A chilly start will give way to a lovely warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
OK, Donald Trump says send the army in, send the army in, send the migrants out. That's what we'll be discussing next.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Donald Trump has confirmed he plans to use soldiers to deport undocumented migrants, whatever that means. This comes as questions grow over how the future president will fulfill his pledge to execute the largest mass deportation in American history.
Well, let's get the thoughts this morning of the American journalist, Scotty Nell Hughes. Good morning, good to see you. OK, so this was being speculated upon, and he came out and tweeted saying, true, I will absolutely use the military. Tell us more.
OK, so let me just give you a heads up, because I feel like at this point we're friends. We just went through a campaign season full of drama where there was all sorts of speculation, all sorts of people getting their knickers all up in a ball. And the reality of it is it never really ever panned out exactly as it was meant, as people meant it out to be. I would say, especially in this case, because this is definitely dealing with a very sensitive situation, that yes, there are going to be major deportations happening of those illegals and criminals that are here in the United States. But let's just actually wait and see how it's going to be handled before this sort of meltdown that we're seeing here in the mainstream press, here on the left. They just have to have something to melt down about Donald Trump, because frankly, there's not much that they can really scream and cry and tear their clothes about right now.
I agree with you, Scotty Nell. How else would you deal with a big group of migrants? I mean, is it really shocking to people that military would be involved in processing them?
I mean, you would think they're making this out to be where the military is going to go knocking down doors and burning down buildings. I mean, that's just not exactly going to be very realistic. That's what some on the left, those that Donald Trump defeated 2 weeks ago, who are still very bitter, that's that fear mongering that they want to do. That's very unrealistic. Now, what you are going to see, though, when you do have a long list of people that have been already ordered to be deported, that have been given the papers through the process, all of those criminals who have already been arrested and taken out, those are going to be the first ones who are going to be respectfully taken back and sent back to their countries. And they can do that with local law enforcement, with the idea, if needed, to have a backup of the National Guard and the local state authorities. But at this point, I think we just need to wait and see how exactly this is going to be implemented. And just these fear tactics that are coming from those, I just think that they protest too much and are still bitter over the loss from 2 weeks ago.
Well, let's talk about what's happened in those 2 weeks, because we're already seeing on the border with Mexico a huge rush of migrants trying to get in before Trump has his inauguration. We've also seen perhaps a volte-face from President Biden to try and change American foreign policy before Trump comes in. So much for a lame duck final term for Biden. There's lots happening in these final few weeks.
Oh, there's definitely going to be lots happening on both sides. I can't wait to see the final list of pardons that I think that Joe Biden gives out on his way out of office, especially if his son is on that list. But of course, there's going to be these large immigrants going to be knowing that the border wall is about to be built. They're going to shut down the southern border, because that was one of the main reasons why Donald Trump was elected. That was one of the reasons why these demographics that normally vote Democrat crossed over and went and voted Republican. They want to see their homes and their communities protected and put first. So now you are going to see, of course, these migrants that are in panic coming over. But let me tell why they need to stop, because Donald Trump is very serious. He will round up those that are over here that are not wanting to do good in the community. We have had a rush here, even in my home state of Tennessee, a rush of Venezuelan gang violence happening in middle America. And Americans are just not going to stand for it. So I think whoever is coming over here right now, I can promise you the first time that they commit an illegal act or some sort of criminal act, Donald Trump is not going to give them the benefit of the doubt or a second or third chance that we've often seen with the Biden administration. He's going to pack their bags and send them right back home.
Scotty Nell, thank you very much indeed. And we just wonder how popular that move would be. I actually think the majority of people don't care. They've got a problem, deal with it. If you use soldiers, you use soldiers. If you don't use soldiers, you don't use soldiers. Who is particularly annoyed about that? Let us know this morning.
Don't forget to tune in here on GB News tomorrow night. There's a special interview to be broadcast with Donald Trump's son from 9 o'clock right here on GB News.
Well, it is the final week now of our Christmas giveaway, so that could be yours already in time for the big day itself. You could win
£25,025 in tax-free cash, plus shopping vouchers and a GB News Christmas gift bag. So if you haven't already entered, why not? Here's how.
There's just 35 days until Christmas, and it's the final week to see how you could enjoy it on us. That's £20,025 in tax-free cash to make 2025 fantastic. £5,000 to spend on gifts for all of the family. £500 in vouchers to buy a slap-up Christmas lunch at your favourite supermarket. And finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. Plus, we're going to get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm just monitoring in what everybody's saying about these farmers' protests, and somebody called CB has posted on Your Say saying, for anyone thinking this farmer issue isn't a problem, I advise them to research what happened to Australian farms that were forced to sell. The cashed-up Chinese bought them as part of building massive corporate farms to grow food for their people, not locals. And it gave the Chinese Communist Party massive economic influence in any country where they bought land. You know, and this is coming straight after we saw Starmer cozying up to President Xi Jinping yesterday. Would you like to see the British countryside being bought up by the Chinese Communist
What have we got left
Party?
that we actually own in this country?
The countryside.
Yeah, that's about it. That's your lot. Paul Coit, he's got all last night's sport right after this.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. There are delays of up to an hour with some cancelled trains between Barrow and Furness and Lancaster because of flooding. There are a number of road closures because of snow in Derbyshire. Woodhead Road's closed each way between Crowden and Holmfirth. Woodhead Pass is closed each way between Tintwistle and the Flouch Roundabout, and the A628 is closed each way between the Flouch Roundabout and the Gunning traffic lights at Hollingworth. The A57 Snake Pass is closed each way between Ladybar Reservoir and Royal Oak Inn at Glossop because of snow, and Manchester Road between Whalley Bridge and Buxton is also closed because of snow, along with the A537 Cat and Fiddle Road between Macclesfield and Buxton. And in Cheshire, the A49 is closed in both directions between Ridley and Spurstow, and that's because of a fallen tree. Diversions are in place, and that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Australian chef David Thompson is opening a new restaurant, Long Chim. The name, which translates roughly as come and try, already has locations in Sydney, Perth and Dubai, and previously operated in Melbourne and Singapore. It marks a return to London for Thompson, whose Belgravia haunt Naarm closed in 2012. But that earned him accolades, including in 2002, the first Michelin star awarded to a Thai restaurant. So you've mentioned Bangkok there. What is your love for Thai food? Describe to us why you think Thai food is such a great cuisine.
It's endlessly complex and satisfying. It just resonates on the palate. For me, as a cook, it offers a challenge. And the way that you cook it is you chase taste. You don't follow a recipe, you follow your sense of taste. And so with all these dishes that you'll taste today, but also in the restaurant that we're opening, it's all about a sequence of taste and seasoning that has some balance.
What is this dish?
This is something called gengari gung, which is an aromatic curry of prawns.
Lovely looking prawns, yes.
They're not too bad. And it's with something strange called water bamboo, which we found up in Chinatown just the other day. And it's a perfect accompaniment. I'll just take a little.
Yes. Describe that perfect accompaniment to me again. Water
bamboo.
What is it? Water bamboo, yeah.
And you would not know of it, because I didn't know of it that much either. And it tastes like a little bit of like young coconut meat. So it's perfect with these prawns and this curry. And what you need to have with this curry, because this is the way that Thai food works, an interplay of flavours, this little cucumber salad on the side, and that helps to bring out the spice and the sweetness and the savoury quality.
I must say, all of this looks so lovely.
GB News, the People's Channel.
The winners and losers in the Nations League, it's all up to date. Paul will tell you.
I will. Scotland beat Poland 2-1 away in Poland, which is a very good result. The fact it was a 93rd minute winner, which makes it all the better, seeing Scotland were quite good in the past of doing OK and then letting a goal in right at the end. They've reversed it, so they've done really well. Andy Robertson scored. So they're now into a playoff, this Nations League. I mean, it's just like, what's going on here? This Nations League, to stay in the top tier of the Nations League, which is what England have now moved up to. So what they have to do is this. So there's going to be the League A and B playoffs. The second place from League B, which could be either Greece, Austria, Czech Republic, Georgia, Albania, Ukraine, Turkey, Wales or Iceland, will now play Scotland. The draw will be at 11 o'clock on Friday. And the game... I'm not finished yet, don't you yawn. 20th and the 23rd of March is when the game will be.
Who cares? I mean, I look at this...
Don't be mean.
No, sorry.
Get me Coke.
Who's decided whether England are first-rate, second-rate, whether Scotland are the same, Northern Ireland are going up? I mean, for goodness sake, who cares?
I know.
Well.
On to the next game of the Nations League. Northern Ireland drew with Luxembourg 2-2. Anyway, they've done well. And the other one that we spoke about yesterday, Liechtenstein versus San Marino. Who do you think came through?
Liechtenstein.
Yes.
There we go.
So not only is it Liechtenstein, they'd only San Marino have only ever won game before, so it's their second ever win. First time they've ever scored 3 goals. And also the first time they've ever won away from home.
And where is Liechtenstein?
Liechtenstein is sort of in between Germany and Switzerland in that Alpine region.
Oh, sort of landlocked, is it?
Yes, it is. Very landlocked. Very small country. Tiny.
Okay.
Tiny little country. San Marino is also very, very small. The 5th and 6th smallest countries in the world.
The Harry Kane statue.
Was it any good?
Has it been unveiled?
Yeah, so the statue, which had been kept for quite some time, this Waltham Forest Council had ordered this, and then someone found on this balance sheet that £7,000 had been spent on a statue of Harry Kane. And it was like, well, what are we going to do with it? So then he was going to appear, and I really like this idea, at Chingford Station, that he would sit on a seat, the statue would be there, which is Chingford in East London, which is his hometown. So I like that. And then it was like, no, health and safety can't have that because it will get in the way. So they've now found a home for it. Harry was there. Can we have a look at the statue and see what you think? We don't have the statue. So anyway, but anyway, the statue is now at Peter May Sports Centre, which is in East London, near Chingford, and there's a mural on the wall behind it. And so everybody that goes along could say, I just think this. I mean, it's nice, but there shouldn't not be a more of public place for it.
I'm told she does have the Wheel of Fortune. She hasn't got Harry Kane's statue, but the Wheel of Fortune, whatever that is.
Well, that was something we were going to do yesterday, but I'm more than happy.
Oh, right. Well, better late than never.
I'm more than happy. Listen, you know what? I could talk about Rodrigo Bentancur and the ban. I could tell you about Rafa Nadal could possibly play his last game.
Or is it just possibly? I thought it was actually his last game.
Well, it will be, but it's only because whether he gets chosen for the game, which is against the Netherlands in the Davis Cup.
That's sad.
Because he's like 158, so he might not play. But the thing is, you put him in because it's all going to be very emotional. Tickets for this, by the way.
I thought you meant age-wise.
No.
You mean as in ranking.
Yes,
I thought that was
and
a dig
ranking.
at him not being a young, sprightly tennis player.
If you bought a ticket, by the way, for this Davis Cup match, it would have been £100, and now you can get them for 16 grand. You could sell it for, just in case he misses. Right? Do you want to do the Wheel of Fortune?
Yeah, go on.
Sure.
Were you going to do the Wheel of Fortune? Yeah.
I was asked to do Wheel of Fortune.
Did it in another life.
Flew me to America. I went to Burbank, California.
Yeah.
And to watch Pat Sajak.
Pat Sajak.
And Vanna White.
Vanna White.
Yeah. Do that and mix behind the scenes. The Americans, you see, the American audiences are interesting. They pay people to sit in American audiences.
Do they really?
They do, yeah. They get paid $100 or so for 4 hours.
And you've got to do all of this.
And that's why they do it.
Gosh,
and
you've really got to go for it.
Yeah.
So you would know then, so with the Wheel of Fortune, the whole idea is that there's a phrase, right, that appears...
Yeah, that they have to make up, yeah.
So they go, I'll go a letter A.
Yeah.
And then the A's will appear. You've got 3 A's. And then there will be a phrase that looks obvious, and then you've got to guess what the phrase is to win the money.
Yeah.
Well, there was a guy in America, this is on the Wheel of Fortune, so this does count as sport. It's sport and pastimes. So...
That's your title.
Exactly, head of sport and pastimes. Have a look at this. It's a pretty easy thing to solve, but the guy had trouble with this. Have a look at this. I think you'll like it.
I'd like to buy a U.
Well, you're going to get 3 U's.
I'd like to solve the puzzle.
Okay, well, let's hear it.
Treat yourself a round of sausage. Oh.
I'm sorry, that's not it. Over to Katina.
I'd like to solve.
Okay.
Give yourself a round of applause.
Yeah, that's it.
Someone was hungry.
Treat yourself a round of sausage.
Which wasn't the right answer.
It was not the right answer. You know what? I would have given him the money. But he says, treat yourself a round of sausage. No.
I think my reaction would have been a bit different than the host.
What would you have done?
He played that very straight.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. Right, well, I like that. Head of sport and
Pastimes.
Pastimes.
Head of sport and pastimes.
Committee over there.
And you know what? You know what I'm going to do now?
What are you going to do?
I'm going to treat myself to a round of sausage.
Good lad.
That's what I'll do.
Oh, yeah, make sure you share the love.
See you later, alligator. We've got all the stories making the newspapers, getting people talking, and we're doing that with... Who have we got doing that?
Oh, that's a good question.
Claire Muldoon.
Andy Williams.
And Andy Williams.
Claire Muldoon.
Yeah, OK, right after this.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight, every night from 11 p.m.
The Daily Mail now, Josh, and pub landlords have to worry about more than the optics when it comes to offensive banter,
Yeah,
it
this
seems.
is a really big story and important. Pub landlords could have to become banter cops to stop themselves being sued by staff offended by comments from customers under workers' rights reform. So, Labour, when they were part of their election process, they were like, we're going to reform workers' rights, and that all sounds good on paper, but there were issues in terms of how might it affect employees and fear from employees costing them more money. One of these things that they're sort of pushing through, though, is that in the Equality Act of 2010, part of the issue was that if you were offended at work or someone said something sexist or racist, something that affected you, the employer had to take some sort of, they had three chances to kind of take action.
Yeah.
Now, the employer should have taken action already. So employees can sue employers. Now, this has a big impact on us because we're comics and we perform in venues. And if some of the bar staff hear a joke that they don't like, then they can sue their employer, potentially, under this legislation.
So it's not punters?
Well, also, it could be like you're at a bar and some bloke is like, oh, I like that top, or whatever. That's not good behaviour. But the point is now that employee could sue their employer.
So, because, I mean, the sort of scenario I was imagining was that a barmaid was being maybe sexually harassed or
That's
something.
what they're focusing in this article, but other articles have gone down the free speech route.
OK.
And also venues and universities having lectures. We saw it at, in Edinburgh Fringe Festival and Sadowitz. He had a show cancelled not because of any punters, but because two of the 18-year-olds were working. They were upset.
There was a bar in Brighton, wasn't there? There was a story we covered a few weeks ago. A bar in Brighton threw some people out. Because
exactly. They had turfs on the...
turfs. Yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player app. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Andy Williams, Claire Muldoon, they've got the newspapers for you this morning, and the farmers' protest is going to happen shortly in London. And Andy, what do you think?
Well, I don't think, as some people say, this is a malicious or a vindictive policy. I don't think Labour have set out to hammer the farmers, but I think that is the effect, unfortunately. I think
of course they've set out to hammer the farmers. And of course, when you look and they say, oh my goodness, we're hammering the farmers, and if they cared, they would do something about it. But the simple thing is, they don't care.
Well, I think they should do something about it, and I think, actually, U-turning, which is seen as a kind of dirty word in politics, is actually sometimes a sign of strength. Admitting that you've got it wrong, I think it's just a poorly designed policy. It captures too many people. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a conversation that happened in the Treasury where they said, oh, £1 million, that seems like a nice big round number, that'll sort it out. No, it's actually going to hurt, as we know, lots of families. Whereas what they were trying to achieve was capturing very, very, very wealthy people, non-farmers, who've invested in farmland as a legal way of avoiding inheritance
This
tax.
doesn't touch them. And they need to come up with some way of going after those, clearly. And they've all got their land in trusts. And it seems, you know, if you're rich enough, none of this touches you. You leave the country, you find loopholes. But it's the hard-working people of this country that are being hammered by this.
Well, in France, as I understand it, you have to prove that you can actually farm the land in order to own farmland. Now, I know that that would take a while to design and implement, but that seems like one way that we could do this and actually capture the people we're trying to tackle here, and not the farmers.
What about the suggestion that farmers must pay up for the NHS?
I think it's just ridiculous. I think they're using buzzwords like the NHS very emotively to try and get their message across to the electorate to say, oh, we're doing it for the NHS. They're not. The NHS is a buzzword. It's you know, people hold the NHS to such a high degree in this country. We love the NHS, and anything to do with the NHS is fine. It doesn't really get to the nits and the bolts of what they've actually done. And I don't think it's right, Andy, that for you to say, oh, we didn't do it to get at farmers. They did. They knew what they were doing. And I think it's a really, as ever, from how many months have been in power, indeed, yet another badly implemented, badly planned electoral reform or try.
I just think it's...
farmers have been saying that, you know, whether your point is correct or not, it's simply just a lack of understanding of the rural way of life in this country. They've renamed the Environment Secretary City Steve. You know, you've got Starmer and Reeves, both Londoners. You know, are there any prominent Labour politicians who really understand British countryside? I can't think of any.
Politicians actually understand Labour policy, grassroots Labour policy. They're supposed to be there for the people. They're supposed to be there for everybody, and they're not. This government is only there for themselves, and he can double down as much as he wants, Starmer, and I'd actually like to see him in this country face the decisions that he's taken and actually stand up for them, if that's what he can do.
The fact is that rural communities are now a significant part of Labour's coalition, right? There's about 100 constituencies that have a rural aspect that are now Labour seats. So if they don't realise, they do need to wake up to it, because apart from the fact of the policy being wrong, it's actually going to cause electoral doubt. I wouldn't be surprised if they've lost 5 or 10 of those seats already.
The Telegraph have done some maths, and they reckon that 7 of those constituencies are likely to go. But, I mean, we're so early on in the electoral cycle, that's irrelevant. But their majority is so significant, isn't it, that even if they lost 100 or so seats, they'd still be the majority in Parliament.
Well, that's true, but that's not the right way to look at it. I mean, you've got to... You can't start off at the beginning of a Parliament and go, well, we can deal with losing 10 seats here and 10 seats there and 10 seats there. It's careless. And actually, if you're looking at it purely through an electoral lens, it's about building a broad coalition. And we've already, I mean, I think we'll come on to talk about winter fuel in a minute. We've already upset pensioners. We're upsetting farmers now. And I just think Labour really need to be more thoughtful about this.
He was build the foundations and then, what was it, change the country. That was what he was trying to do, fix the foundations and build the country.
Well,
he's not.
Let's look at who else is upset. Front of the Times today, and I think if it wasn't for the farmers' protest, this would probably be an even bigger story. This is more than 70 companies under the auspices of the British Retail Consortium. Companies like Marks & Spencer's, Tesco's, Asda, Amazon, Boots, Aldi, all basically accusing the government of being anti-growth, anti-business. Apparently the Treasury tried to kibosh this letter and have been urging them not to, and it just goes to show the extent of the love lost between the two. And this is all about the national insurance rise for employers, but also the minimum wage increase, which is going to really hurt business.
I mean, I think this is actually a far bigger story than the farming story. I understand the emotion behind that, but in terms of the wider economy, you know, you've got 70 or so retailers saying this is going to push costs for retailers up by £7 billion a year. I think Tesco alone says it's going to cost them £1 billion. That's going to feed through into food prices. Now, I, as a Labour member, a Labour supporter, I understand why Rachel Reeves looked at her first budget. She needed to raise some money. She needed to raise significant amounts of money. But I don't think employer national insurance was the right way.
Rises, did she?
I don't think. Well, but in the scheme of things, that's a kind of drop in the ocean. But I think employer national insurance yes, it raised a huge amount of money, but it's going to feed through into inflation, it's going to cause job losses, and I don't think it was the right call.
The other crucial thing is not just all of these larger companies, these huge companies that it's going to affect. Small and medium enterprises in this country, the SMEs, the effect of the increase in employer national insurance will cripple them. There's a company I know just up the road is going to cost them 10 grand a month, 120 grand a year. That's 2 full-time equivalents. Where are they going to get this extra money from? When contracts aren't coming through, it's really difficult to get credit, it's really difficult to get money in, it's crippling people, and I don't understand why they've done it. They seem to be taking all the money they can possibly get from private investment, from private companies, and putting it into public purse, the public purse who will not generate growth. Yeah. We know that because that's not fixed.
Well, you will get in response to that, we weren't aware of the deficit the country was running under.
Oh, that 22 billion black hole.
You'll hear that.
From the son of a toolmaker. Will we hear that, really?
But I agree with you. They talk about wealth generation, but what they mean is taxing.
That's it.
There's nothing else open to them. Now, if they were to do something controversial like fracking, I'm not saying they should, but I'm saying at least you could see how that is wealth generating, and then people can debate it and go up against it.
Yeah.
But there is nothing there devoid of ideas on how to.
But I think that's exactly the point, Eamonn. Is I do think it's the right thing to be. We've massively underinvested in this country for such a long time in infrastructure, in the kind of industries and the technology of the future.
That big white elephant.
Yeah, I mean that's been disaster. And I noticed by the way, you know, there's that story about spending 100 million on was it a bat tunnel or something to safeguard a rare species of bat? That cost 100 million. That's half of the amount that this agricultural land tax policy is going to raise.
We'll bring in.
Yeah.
What a time to be alive. Where do you want to go next? Should we go for something lighter? How are we doing?
I mean, Andy makes a very good point. I mean, it seems to be like, OK, if we build a bat cave or a bat tunnel, that's OK, because that's the good thing, that's the right thing to do. Think of all those happy batties that are out there and how they're being looked after. Well, actually, somebody needs to say, this is blooming nonsense.
Yes.
And if you lose 100 bats and they become extinct and whatever, well,
but I do think Labour has an opportunity because it has such a big majority, as you said.
14 years of opposition, Andy, to get the things right.
But there were a few screw-ups along the way during that period in opposition, right? So let's not blame Keir Starmer and some of those people weren't even in Parliament.
Let's blame Keir Starmer because it's his fault.
He wasn't even elected until 2015.
Door, Andy.
It is now. It is now.
I don't think he's hardly ever in.
Well, do you mean because he's abroad all the time?
Keir.
Rebuilding our relationships with our international allies that we need. Well, you know, we've got to live in the real world.
Running away.
Yes, I do. He's a weak man.
I don't agree with that at all.
I think he'd be hugely criticised if he wasn't attending the G20.
Absolutely.
I think it's quite rich.
COP29. He was the only one that turned up at COP29.
Well, rightly so. You've got to go to COP. It's important. It draws a line in the sand.
We're going to have fun in the green room in a couple of minutes, aren't we?
I hope so.
Why? What's going on?
Well, he's Keir Starmer's right-hand man.
Yeah, right.
OK, well, let's talk about British Airways, which is in meltdown, apparently, which just, you know, when is it ever going to return to being the world's favourite airline, Claire?
Well, it's not. It's a budget airline, though. It is a budget. No, it hasn't got a bit better. I use British Airways all the time. It's a budget airway. Brilliant staff, absolutely brilliant staff, and they're very lucky they have them.
Well, Caitlin was in Belfast last night trying to get home. Thankfully, she did get home. But again, the whole IT glitch service, she was like, oh my gosh, where are we going? Can we actually get on? Luckily for her, she did manage to get home, but the flight was delayed. They were sitting on the tarmac. The pilots couldn't talk to air traffic control, nor could they talk to the land staff. It was just horrific. We had people queuing up in Verona, not knowing if they would be able to get home, and I don't think any of them did. An IT glitch with BA once in a while, who can blame them? But this is happening time and time again.
I really don't like IT glitches on airlines either, because you just think all of these planes
are a bit unnerving
by computers.
Hugely unnerving.
And, you know, we're looking at what's going on with Russia at the moment. It's the 1000th day of the conflict since the invasion into Ukraine. And people saying, oh, is there going to be, you know, is he going to press the nuclear
Armageddon?
Button? Or might he just do some kind of cyber
attack?
Or what's it, you know, chopping power lines and energy lines or whatever else it might be. There are many forms that he could retaliate, and you know, airlines could be one of those.
It's so worrying, and you look at stories like this and you think, is a major airline like BA resilient enough to handle anything like that? Clearly not.
But the app was down, you know, and that's where everyone gets their information. Where would the luggage end up? It's just ridiculous.
Well, I got one of those tabs that you put
the app
in
with the
your
AirTags.
cases, and it tells you where your case is. If you can't trust the airline, well, trust yourself, I suppose.
What was that
doing
show with the train that got hacked? What was it called?
Night Sleeper.
Have you seen Night Sleeper?
Yeah.
I mean, that makes me nervous when I'm on a train now, but imagine on a plane.
Well, just in case Isabel doesn't come back, we'll tell you that Andy Williams and Claire Muldoon will be back in about 40 minutes' time. But right now, let's go to Alex Deacon. Alex has got the weather picture, which is a bit chilly.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. For many of us, a distinctly wintry flavour to the weather this morning. There are ice and snow warnings in place. For quite a few of us, though, it will be a fine and sunny day, but don't expect any warmth. Sleet and snow has been crossing parts of the UK through the night, edging away from eastern areas this morning, but some pretty unpleasant conditions on some roads, and the snow showers continue to feed in through the day across northern Scotland. Staying a bit damp with outbreaks of rain across the southwest of England, but for many areas it'll brighten up with some sunshine, but that northerly wind bringing a real chill. Temperatures struggling at 3 or 4 degrees for many, and feeling even colder when you add on the strength of that wind, which will continue to bring snow showers in across northern Scotland. Significant accumulations of snow over the hills at lower levels, not huge amounts, but still some disruption is likely, with a few centimetres possible, and much more than that over the mountains. A few snow flurries may continue to edge into northern parts of Northern Ireland, so again potentially turning icy here as temperatures tumble. Generally a clear evening across much of Wales and the Midlands and southern England. Staying quite cloudy across the far southwest of England. Some rain showers coming in here, and then as we go through this evening and overnight, we'll see a few more of these showers coming down the eastern side of England. Again, a real mix of rain close to the coast, but some sleet and snow likely inland, particularly over hills. A few of those flurries coming into parts of Wales and Northern Ireland, so again could turn icy as temperatures tumble well below freezing in rural spots, and again feeling even colder on Wednesday with that brisk wind bringing a few showers across eastern areas and some for Northern Ireland and Wales, and plenty more of those wintry showers keeping going into northern Scotland. Again, for a good chunk of the country though, it's a dry, fine, sunny day to come tomorrow, but it will again be on the cold side with temperatures really struggling. 7 or 8 in the southwest, but for many other areas 2 or 3.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning. There are problems because of snow this morning across parts of the north of England and North Wales. Trains have been stopped between Deep Bradford interchange in both Huddersfield and Wakefield Kirkgate. A6024 Woodhead roads closed each way between Crowden and Holmfirth because of snow. The A628 Woodhead Pass is closed between Tintwistle and the Flouch roundabout. The A57 Snake Pass is closed each way between the Ladybow Reservoir and Royal Oak Inn at Glossop. The A537 Cat and Fiddle route is closed each way between Macclesfield and Buxton, and the A44 is closed each way between Llangwrig and Dufferin Castle. In Staffordshire, the A50 is closed eastbound from the Blythe Bridge roundabout to Uttoxeter after an accident, and the M26 in Kent is taking half an hour in westbound queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
This is the final week to grab your chance to win Christmas on Us this year. There's £20,025 in tax-free cash. There's £5,000 to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £500 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. We'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Farmers fight back as they take to the streets to protest over the Chancellor's inheritance tax rate.
It's all going to happen today. There are warnings that any turnout could be as high as 40,000, and hundreds of officers are on standby to keep the peace.
Well, that's as Chancellor Rachel Reeves faces a backlash, and she tells farmers they must cough up to fund the NHS.
The Prime Minister cozies up to China as he meets with the counterpart at the G20 summit, becoming the first Prime Minister to do so since Theresa May.
Donald Trump announces controversial plans to use the military to deport illegal migrants.
1,000 days since Russia invaded Ukraine, and Donald Trump isn't backing down on his promise to bring peace. But is he the man for the job? We'll be debating that very shortly.
Jungle life kicks in as I'm a Celebrity campmates get teary-eyed. We'll have more details later on.
Tears on day 2, my goodness. Good results for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Spurs' Rodrigo Bentancur gets a 7-match ban, and Swindon Town is haunted.
Very wintry flavour to the weather this morning. Some frost, some ice, and yes, in places some snow. For many, though, it will be a sunny day. Just don't expect it to be very warm. Join me later for a full forecast.
Very good to see you on this Tuesday morning. Welcome to the programme. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Hold on a minute. So you're telling me there are ghosties and spookies at Swindon Town Football Club?
Apparently, Ian Holloway has taken over as manager. 3 weeks, not doing very well, and apparently it's haunted. The training centre is haunted. People are hearing all these bumps and they're seeing these orbs go past. And, well, you know what? If you're 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, I'd use the excuse for we're not getting the good results in because of the ghosts, maybe a little bit later. But apparently that's the reason things are not going so well at Swindon Town. That's it. And Andrew Pearce, every single day when I walk in or when he comes in, the first thing he says, oh, there's no sport. And then he goes, any chance of doing Swindon Town? Because he's a Swindon Town fan. So for Andrew Pearce today, we're going to talk about Swindon Town. So finally...
Well, so the idea is now there's going to be some sort of appeasement with the spirits. They've got to be friends.
Well, yes, it's right, yes.
What are you laughing
She
at?
may laugh, Eamonn. She may
laughs
laugh.
at everything. Look at this riddle of 21 UFOs. Go on, laugh, laugh.
Yes, yes.
Spare me.
So, you may mock Isabel, but...
I think it's rats and mice. They come in around this time of year to get cosy.
Yeah, but they don't fly across and make ghouly sounds, do they? They don't.
Bumps and bangs and scratching.
OK. Well, anyway, apparently they're going to try and clear it. And do you remember Barry Fry did this for Birmingham City?
The manager, yeah.
What he did... because they said there was a curse on St Andrews, he urinated in each corner of the pitch, and then Birmingham City then started.
The tangents we go on. That's quite something. Well, I look forward to you telling Andrew Pearce he needs to step up and do his thing for the club.
Well, apparently he's in every corner of this building. He's going to have to do that for Swindon Town. So look out.
Keep us posted, Mr. Paul.
I will.
Thank you very much indeed.
Right, let's talk about these protests, shall we? Thousands of farmers will be gathering in Westminster to react to the government's recent changes to inheritance tax.
Well, the nation's most influential farmer, Jeremy Clarkson, is expected to attend alongside Nigel Farage there. Elon Musk has taken to X to call the government's decision Stalin-like.
Well, our correspondent Will Hollis has been looking ahead to today's protest.
In farming, the day begins at dawn. An early start for Ollie. His family has owned land here in South Leicestershire since the 1960s.
So we're now with our main herd of beef suckler cows. They're all still out in the fields because we had a dry November.
But under new rules around inheritance tax, he feels his livelihood is at risk.
I think we'll see severe economic impacts within villages and market towns. You know, there'll be a trickle effect from agricultural activity into the wider economy, and it'll be quite negative. And obviously food supply will drop off.
In the autumn budget, the Chancellor announced changes to inheritance.
We will reform agricultural property relief and business property relief. From April 2026, this will ensure that we continue to protect small family farms and with three-quarters of claims unaffected by these changes.
For decades, farmers have been exempt from the end-of-life tax. On agricultural and business assets worth more than £1 million, farmers must now pay a 20% tax. The National Farmers Union thinks the changes will cripple family farms. Tom Bradshaw is president of the NFU.
There will be farms that end up having to sell the whole farm because the business is no longer viable on the back of this tax.
You want them to stop with this process of introducing inheritance tax?
They have to immediately reduce the pressure, which means either stop it or pause it while they come forwards with a full consultation.
The government says the tax reforms ensure wealthier estates and the most valuable farms pay their fair share toward public services. 10,000 farmers are abandoning their tractors and descending on London in protest.
I think they're growing really well, actually, aren't they?
Better, don't they?
Back in Leicestershire, Ollie and his wife Rebecca fear an uncertain future. They hope they can one day pass the farm down to their young sons.
We're very passionate about our family farm, and being able to continue having that stewardship, that ownership of the land, to be able to pass it to future generations is really important.
Rural Britain is coming to the capital. Will Hollis, GB News, Leicestershire.
So here's what gets me. Who are all these farmers who are cashing in on their farms and, you know, buying top sports cars and villas abroad and, you know, jetting off here, there and everywhere?
Yeah, it's not farmers. It's a lot of these sort of city bankers that are buying up this land and passing it on tax-free to their kids. But those aren't the people that are out grafting for hardly any income. So
is this reality, and Rachel Reeve to say that farmers, by not giving this tax, or by protesting about this tax, they are crippling the NHS, are they? Is that fair? Let us know your views. Let's go to Will now, and he will be joining the parade today. Tell us more, Will.
Good morning. Well, for right now, we're thankfully on a stationary coach coming down from Lincolnshire, which is often dubbed the breadbasket of Britain because so much food is grown here. And this is a bus that stopped in, I think, Bourne. We've just come from Spalding in the south of Lincolnshire County, and there are about maybe 30 or 40 farmers, and there's still another stop to do. So let's talk to a couple of the farmers that are here. Let's talk to, first of all, to Ben. Ben, just describe for me what might be the effect of inheritance tax on your family farm?
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, I think it's the budget in general, really. I think farming is such an important industry and margins are already squeezed so tight that to put other taxes on our business would just, many businesses would just go under. And I think, you know, it's not just about the taxes, it's about all the other things. We are price takers in what we do, we're not price makers. We can't add value to our produce. And so, yeah, I mean, margins, as I say, are already squeezed. We just can't take any more as an industry.
Tell me a little bit about the farming that you do, the type of farm you have, and what you want for the future of your farm.
Yeah, we're arable farmers. We grow mainly combinable crops and sugar beet, and it's a multi-generational farm. And I've got sons who are studying agriculture at the moment, and you know they've worked on the farm from such a young age. And the only way farms can survive is encouraging these young people into the business. And you know, if we lose that and we can't afford to sustain our business, the skills will just go.
And do you think that an inheritance tax will discourage some young farmers from taking up the family business?
Yeah, definitely. I think the businesses won't be there to encourage them. And, you know, as I say, the margins just aren't there for these extra taxes.
Ben, thank you so much. I'm just going to swap places with my camera operator, guys, just because I want to speak as well to Tom. Tom, you're a little bit of a younger farmer. Just tell me about your circumstance. What do you farm and how did you get into this?
So I actually work for Ben. I'm his farm manager, so I've got a great opportunity as a young person to work in a thriving business. So I see the budget as an attack on our industry. And I'm coming to London to stand up for it.
And what are you expecting from other young farmers that are heading to London? What's the feeling around young farmers who maybe hope to inherit a farm, whether it's a family farm or take over a business?
I think there's some real hard questions. You know, there's serious pressure on margins anyway, and we're looking at the potential split up of family farms, and the only way that they're going to succeed is selling out to corporations who ultimately just want to, you know, go down the line of solar panels and environmental schemes which don't really affect the wider rural community.
Sure. Tom and Ben, thank you so much for talking to us today on the bus from Spalding. We know that there are hundreds of buses just like this one heading to the capital city with lots of really upset farmers who aren't happy about the introduction of inheritance tax and the budget overall. And we're moving now, so we'll be there in about 2 hours.
Good lad. OK, safe journey, Mark. Thank you very much indeed, or Will, forgive me. We've got in the studio James Price. James is a political commentator on all of this. What do you think about the way this is being handled and how the finger of blame has been pointed at farmers, that the NHS is in the state it is because of farmers?
It's actually got me angrier than when we talked about this before, and just how mendacious it is. And we're all used to, at this point, Rachel Reeves lying, frankly. She plagiarised her book, she lied about her CV, they've lied in their manifesto about all of these things they're actually doing. And now to say, well, we have to destroy all these family farms and mess up England's green and pleasant land in order to fund the NHS. I mean, it's a lie. This is just a lie, straight up. And it's outrageous that it's being done. If you want to save that kind of money, you know, we talked a bit before about all the waste inside the NHS. I think that this will raise about, 4% or something like that of the foreign aid budget that we send. So if you reduce that foreign aid budget by just a little bit, you don't need to go after these people. But are we going to do that? No, of course not.
Of course we're not going to do that,
in this entire
and somebody who tries to make... No one really tries to make a logical argument in favour of the foreign aid budget. No one seems to tell the truth on it, which is it's an influence buyer. And that's what they hope.
We've got the government coming on. We haven't got City Steve, as the farmers are dubbing the Environment Secretary. Funnily enough, they aren't putting the Environment Secretary up today. We've got a Minister for Policing coming on, which we can understand a little bit later on, maybe. But the government will maintain this line, and the Prime Minister is saying, look, I will defend this inheritance tax levy all day long. He genuinely believes that they've announced $5 billion in extra funding for farmers, that 50% of food consumed within the public sector is going to come from British farms, and it's required, this levy, in order to, as we've discussed, fund public services. But is that cutting through to the general public, or is this an absolute vote loser for the Labour Party, who've already been on a bit of a downward spiral since the election?
Yeah, I mean, the public is a lot smarter than that, right? I think it was it was fair enough that the Conservatives lost their last election and they're doing some heavy soul-searching right now. The idea that Labour had a mandate to do any of this stuff, I think, is for the birds. Actually, City Steve, as you call him, Steve Reed, the Environment Secretary, used to be my MP. The only interaction I had with him was when some developers wanted to knock down a beautiful Victorian church and put up a little block of flats in there, and he did nothing to stop it. So a beautiful Victorian church, and one of the only green bits of his constituency is gone, and another soulless box building is there.
Where was the constituency?
Croydon North.
Oh, right.
And it's not terribly full of any farming that I could see at any point. Of course, the shops were selling British produce. And by the way, these protesters is a lovely thing. Rather than going and screaming and horror and all the anti-Semitism we've seen on so many marches in London in the last year or so, the main thing that the organisers of these farmers' protests are asking people to do is to buy some British produce and donate it to food banks to show just how wonderful and important all this is.
James, we look forward to hearing more from you throughout the programme. For the moment, thank you very much indeed. Let us know what you have to say about what James is saying.
Yes, and you can guess what our poll of the day is about. We're asking you today, should farmers be given special exemption on inheritance tax, or should they be able to maintain it, which they had before this budget? We'll be bringing you the live results throughout the day. Make sure you stay tuned for those. The final result is in Martin Daubney's show, but we have our own breakfast result just after 9 o'clock. To vote, go to gbnews.com/poll.
OK. Sir Keir Starmer met with the Chinese President Xi Jinping yesterday as the G20 summit continued in Rio.
So the PM outlined plans for a more respectful relationship with Beijing, with hopes of closer ties that could foster economic growth.
GB News political editor Chris Hope is in Rio with the latest.
Sir Keir Starmer always says he comes to these overseas visits to meet with foreign leaders to press the need for trade and the economy, and he's delivered on that today. He started the day meeting with President Xi of China. They've agreed to further talks in Beijing or in London, some bilateral talks to unfreeze that cryogenically frozen relationship under the Tory government between London and Beijing, and that could see the UK doing more deals on the world stage with China. But there are worries, of course, because you've got issues with the Uyghurs and the oppression of them by the Chinese administration, and also concerns about Taiwan and China's support for Russia. The background of the day was about India, where the UK and India have agreed with President Modi and Prime Minister Starmer agreed to restart those trade talks which were suspended back in March. But again, questions about what kind of deal can be done. It's almost certain that India will be asking for labour access to the UK in return for some tariffs being lifted. But of course, more labour means more immigration, and net migration is already at record levels. Overhanging all of that is concern about Ukraine. We started this visit with the Prime Minister expecting news on permissions to fire long-range missiles into Russia in defence of Ukraine, maybe at Russian troops or North Korean troops. But so far there's been nothing. And in fact, reports that we thought had been substantiated have not been backed up with comments from Joe Biden's administration in Washington, and certainly not in London, where we're told the UK is simply doubling down on its relationship with Ukraine. So we move to Tuesday, and of course all the action politically will be that farmers' march back in London, and no question Sir Keir Starmer will face questions about that when he faces the UK press. Big questions for him to answer, although it may be 5,500 miles away. That issue of how to deal with the farmers concerned about inheritance tax and increases will not go away. Christopher Hope, GB News, Rio de Janeiro.
James Price still with us in the studio. It'll be very interesting to see how it is reported in the press, the farmers' protests, and if Jeremy Clarkson scores better than the Prime Minister.
Yeah, absolutely right. I think some polling that's just come out shows that people like actually Boris and Nigel Farage are getting much more popular. Starmer's popularity has taken a nosedive. Rachel Reeves, Angela Rayner's all taken a nosedive. It was pretty extraordinary to think the scale of the win they had just a few months ago and how unpopular they are now. You had somebody like Margaret Thatcher, of whom I'm a big fan, would look at polls mid-term and say, no, we're not far enough behind yet, by which she meant that she knew she had to do difficult and unpopular things in order to fix bigger structural issues that the electorate would then reward her for. She'd say, you know, we'll tell the people the truth and the people will be our judge. This seems to be almost the opposite way around here, that this sort of lying about, oh, we have to hurt the farmers to help the NHS, which everybody at home knows is just not true, as we do as well. But they're not fixing the really big structural problems of the Labour Party. And so you can expect their popularity to go down and not, hopefully, to recover at the election because, frankly, what they're doing is making the country weaker and poorer.
I'm just looking at one of the papers. I can't find the one that has the picture of Starmer alongside. There we go. The FT have them side by side. So Xi Jinping and the Prime Minister. It was an interesting meeting yesterday. He said that we will be predictable, respectful, and whatever your views on, the last 14 years, it certainly has been pretty chaotic, probably from the outside looking in. Lots of changes in approaches and tax, particularly when it comes to China, with the golden era under Osborne and Cameron, and then you had a bit of warmth from Theresa May, and then a much more hawkish recent approach in this epoch-defining challenge. But Starmer promising something altogether very different.
Yes, I mean, you can promise these things. I'm not sure how any politician can ever actually promise that things will be predictable and stable. I quoted Mrs Thatcher and Harold Macmillan, another former Prime Minister, who said events, dear boy, events, in terms of what ended his premiership and what tends to end all political careers. You just don't know what's going to happen. Are we going to be predictable and calm and all these things if Xi Jinping decides that China is going to invade Taiwan? No, of course not. I think it's a silly thing to say. And I think that in a world where Donald Trump is coming back in and a lot of the advisers around him are very clear.
How can you be predictable with Trump?
Well, quite. And a lot of the advisers around him are saying the reason that he is not going to be perhaps so supportive on, say, the Ukraine-Russia war is because America hasn't got the resources to fight all of these global conflicts, and its big structural challenge, let's call it an enemy, is going to be the People's Republic of China. I think we're getting to a point where you cannot coexist necessarily peacefully and have cosy, comfy trade with a communist dictatorship that is actually committing genocide in its country against the Uyghurs.
Leave it there, James. Thank you very much indeed for all your comments this morning. Thank you. Let's bring you up to date news-wise. This is what's happening. Britain's biggest retailers are facing costs up to $7 billion a year after the Chancellor raised national insurance for employers. Over 70 companies, including Marks & Spencer, have written to the Chancellor to warn job losses are inevitable.
British Airways experienced a major system failure yesterday, leaving thousands of passengers facing delays and cancellations. A spokesperson for the airline said they were working to resolve the problem and apologised to any affected customers.
The Queen is said to be heartbroken following the death of her beloved terrier, Beth. Camilla adopted her Jack Russell from Battersea Cats and Dogs Home in 2011. It's understood the dog had an untreatable tumour and had to be put down.
When that story broke yesterday, I was looking at my laptop doing a bit of prep, and my daughter was off sick from school, and she saw a picture of Queen Camilla in a pair of jeans walking the dog. She could not believe that the Queen wore jeans.
Well, there you are.
She absolutely was like, that's the Queen wearing jeans with a Jack Russell. And it just made me think how far we've come from the late Queen Elizabeth, who was always fairly formal and of that generation even in her sort of country gear. It was always in a skirt.
There were no jeans.
But, yeah, the denim from Queen Camilla, raised eyebrows with little Poppy.
But I'm sure little Poppy doesn't even see her own mother in jeans.
She does.
Her mother's like royalty to her.
Hardly.
She has all that.
Straight into leggings when I get home.
Well, Alex Deakin will tell you if they're the things to wear. Good morning, Alex.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. For many of us, a distinctly wintry flavour to the weather this morning. There are ice and snow warnings in place. For quite a few of us, though, it will be a fine and sunny day, but don't expect any warmth. Sleet and snow has been crossing parts of the UK through the night, edging away from eastern areas this morning, but some pretty unpleasant conditions on some roads, and the snow showers continue to feed in through the day across northern Scotland. Staying a bit damp with outbreaks of rain across the southwest of England, but for many areas it'll brighten up with some sunshine, but that northerly wind bringing a real chill. Temperatures struggling at 3 or 4 degrees for many, and feeling even colder when you add on the strength of that wind, which will continue to bring snow showers in across northern Scotland. Significant accumulations of snow over the hills at lower levels, not huge amounts, but still some disruption is likely, with a few centimetres possible, and much more than that over the mountains. A few snow flurries may continue to edge into northern parts of of Northern Ireland. So again, potentially turning icy here as temperatures tumble. Generally a clear evening across much of Wales and the Midlands and southern England. Staying quite cloudy across the far southwest of England. Some rain showers coming in here. And then as we go through this evening and overnight, we'll see a few more of these showers coming down the eastern side of England. Again, a real mix of rain close to the coast, but some sleet and snow likely inland, particularly over hills. A few of those flurries coming into parts of Wales and Northern Ireland. So again, could turn icy as temperatures tumble well below freezing in rural spots. And again, feeling even colder on Wednesday with that brisk wind, bringing a few showers across eastern areas and some for Northern Ireland and Wales, and plenty more of those wintry showers keeping going into northern Scotland. Again, for a good chunk of the country, though, it's a dry, fine, sunny day to come tomorrow, but it will again be on the cold side with temperatures really struggling. 7 or 8 in the southwest, but for many other areas, 2 or 3.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, believe it or not, it is actually the final week of our Christmas giveaway. So if you do fancy £25,025 in time for Christmas of tax-free cash, plus some shopping vouchers and a GB News goodie bag, make sure you enter. Time is running out.
There's just 35 days until Christmas, and it's the final week to see how you could enjoy it on us. That's £20,025 in tax-free cash to make 2025 fantastic. £5,000 to spend on gifts for all of the family. £500 in vouchers to buy a slap-up Christmas lunch at your favourite supermarket. And finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. Plus, we're going to get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2 or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Still to come, can Donald Trump make good on his promise to end the war in Ukraine within 24 hours? We'll be debating that next.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here
We do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Or what? Or what?
I was just thinking, is there some sort of promo we need to do next? Sorry, that's all.
Do you know today is World Toilet Day?
Oh, what does that mean?
It means, I'll tell you what it means,
what does
Miss
it mean?
Isabel. It means that 6 out of 10 people find it hard not to go, but to find a toilet during the day. So if you're a bus driver, if you're a school teacher, taxi driver, doesn't matter who you are, you're out and about, there are less and less toilets about. And people are now being forced to use bags, bottles, buckets, bushes. Yeah.
When I was a roving reporter, it was a bit of a, problem. I used to worry about that.
I think they should pay toilet keepers and cleaners the highest money in the country. They should get the big bonuses and the things
Madame
to do.
Pipi.
Clean toilets, beautiful thing, absolutely. But we need more of them. People don't seem to care. That's it.
Time for that promo, because we have a very big interview that is due to air on GB News tomorrow night. This is going to be a rare sit-down with none other than Donald Trump's son, Eric. It will be 9 o'clock on GB News. Ben Leo will be doing that interview, so stay tuned for that tomorrow.
Concerns over another war, World War III, have led Sweden to tell its people to prepare for it in a nuclear sense. That's after Joe Biden allowed President Zelensky to use long-range missiles, with Russia labelling this an escalation.
But Donald Trump says he can end all and bring peace. But is it really all that easy? And is Trump the man for the job? Let's debate that this morning in the company of the former Conservative MP and military officer James Sunderland, plus the former British Army spokesperson, Major Michael Shearer. Good morning to both of you. Well, let's start with you, Major. You aren't convinced that actually Trump is the man that can save the day here?
Well, I think he can facilitate a conversation. And we've heard the various machinations as to how that might go. And that generally involves ceding territory to Russia or declaring that NATO won't have Ukraine as a member in the future. And I just cannot see Zelensky agreeing to any of that. So the conversations can be had, but the only people that can actually stop this war is Putin and Zelensky.
James?
I think we need to be a little bit careful of the rhetoric that Trump can end the war in a day. It's a bit like building the wall on the Mexican border or deporting all illegal immigrants. But if anybody can, Trump can. And the reason it's important is because he is new. He's new into post in the new year. He's got energy and zeal. And actually, he does have many of the levers that are needed for the war to end. So, for example, will he bank on NATO membership for Ukraine? Will he bank perhaps on increasing or lessening sanctions? And of course, $60, $80 billion a year from the US for the Ukraine effort is no small lever. So there's things that he can do, yes.
Yeah. What do you think that he can do, James?
Well, I mean, I think ultimately it's about bringing the warring factions to the table. It is quite clear that Putin has not achieved his ultimate war aim of subjugating Ukraine, invading the entire country. And it's quite clear, of course, that Zelensky hasn't achieved his aim of ejecting Russian forces from Ukraine. So I suspect that there'll be a deal to be done in due course on borders, pre-2014 borders perhaps. Does it involve Crimea? Does it involve Donetsk? So I suspect that it's about territory in exchange for NATO membership.
It's interesting because Zelensky himself has said he thinks that Trump will bring an end to the war more quickly. Why do you think he said that then, Major Michael Shearer, given that we know fundamentally he'll be opposed to leaving NATO or giving up territory?
Well, he's clutching at straws, I'm afraid, I think, there. It's hopeful. The one thing that, as James has just said, that Trump can do is bring them to the table to have dialogue. But the machinations that I went through just a moment ago, I just cannot see Zelensky giving up territory or declaring that he will never join NATO. I think that is for the birds. And if Trump demands that they cede territory, we're reinforcing bad behavior. And surely that is not the way ahead.
But won't we, Michael, do you see Trump as coming out of this? I mean, if he is to declare at least things are all square, if not a win for him, what would he be looking for?
Well, the big card that he has is of course, the money. And this is something that Europe needs to address very, very quickly. Just to give you the scale of the lack of money that Europe has in the game here, at the end of the last war, into 1960, the United Kingdom gave 7% of its GDP to defence because it knew how serious their freedoms and how perilous their freedoms were. And we've just gone to sleep really since then, particularly since 1991. So Europe need to take that trump card, forgive the pun, away from the United States, and they've got to start giving the money themselves to defend Europe. Apart from the money, I cannot see what lever Trump has, except that he is new. He will be a new man in the game. He does have a voice. He can bring them to the table, but ultimately it has to be up to Zelensky and Putin.
OK, we're out of time, James. I wanted to give you a final word. Unless you can make it very succinct, we need to move on, I'm afraid. Want a final quick word?
Yeah, just to make the point very quickly that, of course, we cannot possibly reward Putin for his aggression by allowing Ukraine to cede territory. But it is a decision for Zelensky. We have to bring peace to that part of the world. And the cost of war in terms of human life and money is astronomical. So it's in everyone's interest to end it.
James Sunderland and Major Michael Shearer, thank you both for your thoughts this morning.
Coming up, we will be drilling policing minister. Grilling, I think that must mean grilling.
Yeah.
Diana Johnson on these farming protests today, talking about that next.
Get that.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. There's disruption because of snow across parts of the north of England this morning. Trains have been stopped between the Bradford Interchange and Wakefield Kirkgate, and buses replaced trains between Halifax and Huddersfield. In Derbyshire, the A628 Woodhead Pass is closed each way between Tintwistle and the Flouch Roundabout. It's also closed between Hollingworth and Barnsley. And the A57 Snake Pass is closed each way between the Ladybower Reservoir and Royal Oak in Glossop. And the A537 Cat and Fiddle route is closed each way between Macclesfield and Buxton. In Cheshire, the A49 is closed along Whitchurch Road at Ridley because of a fallen tree. And in Staffordshire, the A50 is closed eastbound from the Blythe Bridge roundabout to Uttoxeter after an accident. And on the M26 in Kent, it's taking around half an hour in westbound queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets, and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes and Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, just to keep you in the loop on what is afoot, we are expecting a couple of morning rounds. In a few moments, we'll be speaking to the government's policing minister, and then we'll be speaking to the Shadow Environment Secretary. But for now, we're going to review the papers with Andy Williams and Claire Muldoon, starting with you, Andy, and this fury as bills rise in the face of the winter fuel payments being cut.
Yeah, so the energy price cap's due to go up again by 1% on the 1st of January. So, of course, we're going back to the big and long-running debate over the cuts to the winter fuel allowance. Now, I know this isn't going to make me popular, but I've been saying for some time that overall I think that was bad politics, but the right policy choice.
Really?
I do. I think that, you know, Age UK themselves, who ran the campaign against that change, said that 80% of people would not be adversely affected by the change. Now, Labour obviously ran a big campaign.
The 20% of elderly people will be.
Well, no. I'm not saying that. I know Labour ran a big campaign to get more people to sign up to make sure that they receive the winter fuel allowance they're entitled to. Obviously, there are people who are going to be caught at the margins, and I think it's really important that we make sure, Claire's eyeing me up now, ready to go for me, that we make sure that people who need that money get it. But I don't think it's a good use of...
You've seen the 20-page document they need to get through in order to get it.
I think it's longer than that.
You know, it's ridiculous.
No, I know.
Absolutely ridiculous. You're talking about people who are not tech-friendly either. And I'm not patronising the elderly for saying that. It's just fact. And I know as well that it's much colder in Northern Ireland, it's much colder in Scotland than it is in the echelons of this London bubble in which our politicians seem to sit.
I don't think this is a London bubble thing, Claire. I really don't. I don't. I think it's about
saying... Talking about temperature, they've got their finger bang on the wrong temperature.
I understand that, but I'm afraid I think there's a reason Labour have toughed this out, because overall I think it was bad politics. I completely understand that, and it's gone down very badly with lots of people. But I do think, on balance, it was the right thing to do.
Well, according to the front of the Express, there is likely to be a £145 a month increase in energy bills, which, you know, will just hit these people who that would have been covered by their winter.
Well, it's a rise to £145 a month, but I think the state pension is going up by twice the rate of inflation in April. Now, I know the state pension isn't a lot of money for most people, but it is going up significantly. We do have the triple lock.
We've got to interrupt you. We will be back to both of you, but for now, Andy and Claire, thanks very much.
We've got the Minister for Policing, Diana Johnson. Big day for you today, Diana. Obviously hoping everything goes peacefully and quietly for the farming protest. What are you expecting?
Well, yes, absolutely. I know there's a very strong feeling in the farming community about recent changes that were announced, and they are protesting today in London. There are plans that the police will have been involved in to make sure that those protests are peaceful and that no criminal law is breached. And I'm hoping that that will all go ahead, and that farmers will feel they're able to make their case and raise their issues with MPs as they lobby Parliament today.
They're making their case this, but is anybody listening to them?
I'm sure members of Parliament will want to listen to what the farmers have to say. They're an important part of our country, and clearly they are very upset about what has been announced in terms of changes around inheritance. But it is against the backdrop that this government has inherited of really difficult economic times, and that's why the Chancellor made the announcement, as she did in the budget at the end of October, against that £22 billion black hole that we are having to deal with to get the economy and the public finances back on track.
But the money that this raises is absolutely inconsequential compared to the damage that it's going to do to these farming families. Is this really worth the political capital? And the argument that these farmers are going to have to sell up their family businesses in order to pay for the NHS, why should that be their problem?
Well, I think when you look at the figures and you see that the number of farms affected are relatively small, and that actually there are various provisions put in place to allow any inheritance tax that would be due to that smaller number of farms to be paid over 10 years, interest-free, at a lower rate than in other inheritance tax conditions. So I think, whilst recognising this is difficult, that there has been a suite of measures put in place to help those small number of farms that will be affected. And it's also worth saying that there is £5 billion worth of money going into farming over the next 2 years from this government to support that important industry.
It's interesting you say that this will only hit a small number of farms. As far as I'm aware, the government's own departments can't agree on the numbers that are going to be affected. And it just goes to show that what an absolutely ill-thought-through policy this is. Farmers are describing the Environment Secretary as City Steve. There is a misunderstanding, isn't there, from the towny government of British rural life?
What I do know is that in the general election in July, we've now got many more Labour members of Parliament who represent rural areas. So I don't accept that we don't understand or want to advocate on behalf of our rural communities. And certainly as the policing minister, I'm very conscious of the need to address the rural crime issues and translate our neighbourhood policing offer to make sure we have more police officers, PCSOs and specials out in our communities, including rural communities. That's really important to me, and I think it's important to the government that we represent the whole of the country, rural and urban alike.
If it wasn't for these farming protests today, I think this other story would be getting much more traction. But at the front of the Times, it's their lead today, is this letter from 70 huge companies in this country, companies that the Chancellor was cozying up to prior to the election, companies including Marks & Spencer's, Tesco, Sainsbury's, Amazon, Boots, all of whom say that the budget, which is going after national insurance employers' rate and increasing the living wage, is going to have a huge impact on them, to the tune of £7 billion a year. And they're saying that this is a Chancellor who is no friend of business. And whilst they may be able to withstand the pressures, it's the small businesses that will probably go under. Will the government make any changes after this disastrous budget?
I think, again, it's important to note the inheritance that we have at the moment and the difficult decisions that the Chancellor is having to make. So I think that context is important to get the public finances back on track. The Prime Minister and the Chancellor have said the key thing for this government is around growth in the economy, so we can start to move on and invest again in the NHS, in our public services that have been so cut over the last 14 years. This is not an inheritance that anybody wanted, and these difficult decisions are not ones anybody wanted to take, but this is the responsible way that the Chancellor is dealing with what we have inherited.
People are starting to doubt the Chancellor's economic credentials. They seem to be an economist with the truth, but perhaps not so good when she's doing the sums. Is lying on your CV a breach of the ministerial code?
I'm not today. What I'm really here to talk about as the Home Office Minister for Policing is around police reform, and that's a really big, important issue for my constituents and for people up and down the country. So that's really what I wanted to focus on today. I'm not able to comment on any of that. I'm not party to any of those those issues.
It's just
but what I am,
is it a breach of the ministerial code in your view, or indeed in line with the rules, to lie on your CV? It's a simple question.
There is a ministerial code. I am not party, as I say, to the issue that you're raising, but there is a clear ministerial code. The Prime Minister has been very upfront about how he expects ministers to abide by that ministerial code.
Okay.
But could we talk about police reform? Because that's really the big issue that I'm really passionate about.
I'm sorry, Diana, not today.
That's a shame, because it's perhaps another day.
Definitely another day.
Thank you.
We'll book you in now.
Thank you.
God bless. Bye-bye. Thank you very much indeed. Claire Muldoon, line on your CV. Not saying you're lying on your CV, but
Thank you, Eamonn.
where do you stand on line on your CV? I mean, obviously the Minister was uncomfortable talking about it there. Not that she has done it, but...
I thought your questioning was fantastic. I love the economy of the truth actually coming through there. I think it's fine to embellish a CV, but when you're I think lots of people do, but when you're at that level, you cannot say you worked as an economist when you didn't. Especially given the briefcase, the red briefcase that she has living at number 11.
Well, also, she plagiarised her book famously, didn't she? And, of course, lots of people are saying she lied in the manifesto about not raising national insurance. Now it's come to light that she's been editing her LinkedIn
economical.
Well, I wrote down the same word, embellished. I think she did embellish her CV, clearly. And probably at the upper reaches of what's acceptable, let's say, because clearly she wasn't an economist for that entire period of time. I think she worked in IT or systems IT or something like that.
From accounts, I think she's known as.
Oh, dear. Well, what did you make of what she had to say in relation to everything else? I mean, she was absolutely adamant that this, was a problem, that all these businesses were turning around and saying that she was no friend of business. And yet, actually, it seems as though the Treasury were at pains to try and stop the British Retail Consortium from publishing this letter.
Yeah, well, and understandably so. I mean, it's the last thing that any government wants is for all of the major leading lights of British business to come out and say this is going to cost us money and this is going to cause us to cut jobs. It's a really big problem. And I think the most worrying thing, the job cuts, yes, but also when it comes to those major supermarkets, it's going to push inflation up. That's my biggest concern, because inflation is the thing we need to tackle.
Back to the farming issue. Supermarkets lead with milk. OK, that's a loss leader for them, and they squeeze our farmers to the absolute teat of the udder in order to get their pints out. But go back to what she was saying, though, Diana Johnson. In order to pay for the inheritance, albeit over 10 years, they need to sell off land. Who are they going to sell the land to? Bill Gates and China are the biggest farmers now in America. I don't want that happening here in the UK, because food production will go down. Beef cattle, agricultural farming for vegetables, etc., and fruit will go down. Get back to eating seasonally. I mean, I know this government want to help with assisted dying, but this is going. They don't even need a policy now rode through the Houses of Commons. They're doing it by themselves. They're assisting everyone to die.
Well, from drinking, from eating to drinking, and I want you to inform people in a poll what has come out as Britain's favourite drink.
It's the G&T. Gin and tonic has overtaken tea narrowly, as Britain's favourite drink. So people were asked, when you're meeting a friend, what would you have to drink? And 44% of people said a G&T, and 41% said tea.
I'd have thought coffee would have come out trumps and all.
I would have thought so, but it turns out that tea drinking is massively in decline. Yes. And actually, people are drinking less regular tea than ginger tea, honey and ginger, chamomile, all of that kind of stuff. But G&T, the UK is the world's biggest market for gin. And we seem to love it as a nation.
You see, I love a glass of wine, but when I did the maths of how much worse a glass of wine is for you for gin and tonic, I'm trying to switch back. I used to love gin and tonic.
Mother's ruin, isn't it? Gin is mother's ruin. I remember, who was it? Hogarth drew the pictures of people drinking beer because that was supposed to satiate the population, and then they moved to gin, which is great. I love a gin and tonic.
I love a gin and
so
tonic.
refreshing.
We'd have one now, actually. Shall we have one?
Yeah.
Probably a Bloody Mary at this time of day.
Or an espresso martini, because you drink coffee, don't you?
I do.
And poor Eamonn, you don't even drink.
Stuff. Don't have any of it. No desires, no
one vice you've decided to forego. I always think that. You're so holier than thou when the news comes up, and I think, oh, well, you make up for it and all the other days. Fair enough. Right, sorry. Have we got Victoria Atkins? Am I being told? Fabulous. OK, well, we say goodbye to you for now.
Right, okay.
Thank you both very much. And we say good morning to the Shadow Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, Victoria Atkins. Good morning to you. Goodness me, this is a big day. We didn't get the your opposite number, funnily enough, from the government. We actually got the policing minister. But City Steve, as the farmers are dubbing him, is in for a bit of drubbing. What are the Conservatives saying about this, what the farmers are calling pernicious raid on inheritance tax of farmers?
Well, not only is City Steve not out today defending this policy, but we saw the Prime Minister at the weekend running away from farmers in Wales who were trying to get him and his Chancellor to listen to them and the impacts that this budget is having on them. There are, in fact, 3 broken promises in Rachel Reeves's budget. The first and the most high-profile one is this raid on inheritance tax, which is putting family farms at risk. But there's also it gets a bit techie, but the payments that are made to farmers has been massively reduced and escalated, sped up, and that's going to have a huge impact, so that tenant farmers are telling me they won't be able to pay their rent next year. And then the third broken promise is this hike to national insurance, because just as we've seen on the front pages of the papers today, it's going to have a huge impact across all sectors, retail, business, but also, of course, farming. And so farmers are coming to London today. They don't want to come to London. They much prefer to be on their farms drilling and looking after their livestock. But they're coming, we believe, in their thousands to try to get this city-dwelling socialist government to listen to them about the impact that this dreadful budget is going to have on family farming in the United Kingdom.
You're a former health secretary. Why didn't you go after the farmers to make them pay for the NHS?
Well, not only am I a former health secretary, I'm also a former Treasury Minister. I'm a former Treasury Minister. So this is why this choice, and this is a deliberate choice by the Labour government to change inheritance tax in this way. No Treasury Minister or Chancellor in previous governments have touched this, because we understand just how important this tax relief is that has been crafted carefully over many years in order to protect family farms. If any of us care about our countryside, if we want to see the picturesque views that we have across my home county of Lincolnshire, but across the country, if we care about the quality of our crops, if we care about animal welfare, then family farming in the United Kingdom is critical to achieving all of these aims. And this claim that Labour has come up with today to try and, I don't know, divert attention away from the march, that somehow this inheritance tax and this rise in national insurance is to pay for the NHS is economically illiterate, because, as we know, this is going to raise a fraction of what, in fact, we put into the NHS, and are proud to do so. But the harm it's going to do will last many generations. If I can give you just one example, I've had, there are many examples actually, but I'll give you an example. A Welsh farmer he has a number of multi-generational tenant farms who work on his land. So not everybody owns their land. That's another misunderstanding that this Labour government has. And he has said he's going to have to sell 6 tenanted farms in order to pay the inheritance tax. And what that means, nobody should assume that that land is going to be used for farming, that it's going to be used to feed us. We don't know. And it's a risk not just for farming, but also for food security.
Victoria, we're fast running out of time. We've got about 30 seconds left on the programme.
I'm so sorry.
I just want to know, just if you could give me a very brief answer, is lying on your CV a breach of the ministerial code? Because number 10 refuses to say if Rachel Reeves has broken that ministerial code.
Well, her CV, there are as many questions about her CV as there are about the Treasury figures underlying this budget, aren't there? What a shocking first few months this government has had. We've had the pants scandal, where they get other people to pay for their clothes. Okay. We've had Taylor Swift freebies, and now it seems we have questions about the Chancellor's CV.
Yeah. Victoria Atkins, thanks very much indeed. We've got to go back in a moment.
Thank you.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning. There's disruption because of snow across much of the north of England this morning. Train services are suspended between the Bradford interchange and Wakefield Kirkgate. Buses replace trains between Halifax and Huddersfield. The A635 is closed each way between Meltham and Holmfirth. The A628 Woodhead Pass is closed each way between Tintwistle and the Flouch Roundabout. The A628 also closed between the Flouch Roundabout and Hollingworth. The A57 Snake Pass is closed each way between the Ladybow Reservoir and Royal Oak Inn at Glossop. The A537 Cat and Fiddle roads closed each way between Macclesfield and Buxton. Now in Staffordshire, the A50 is closed eastbound from the Blythebridge roundabout to Uttoxeter after an accident earlier, and on the M26 in Kent it's taking around half an hour in westbound queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
This is the final week to grab your chance to win Christmas on Us this year. There's £20,025 in tax-free cash. There's £5,000 to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £500 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. We'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about.
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Farmers fight back as they take to the streets to protest over the Chancellor's inheritance tax plans.
With warnings, turnout could be as high as 40,000 people and hundreds of police officers on standby to keep the peace.
Now that's as Rachel Reeves faces a backlash as she tells farmers they must cough up to fund the NHS.
The Prime Minister cozies up to China as he meets with their Premier at the G20 summit in Rio de Janeiro, becoming the first British PM to do so since Theresa May.
Donald Trump announces controversial plans to use the military to deport illegal migrants.
Jungle life is kicking in as I'm a Celeb campmates get teary-eyed. We'll have more details later in the show.
Snow season comes early as warnings of disruption up and down the country continue as winter sets in.
And in the sport, good results for Scotland and Northern Ireland in the Nations League. Rafa Nadal could play his last game of professional tennis today, and a Harry Kane statue has a home.
We don't talk about I'm a celebrity.
Very wintry flavour to the weather this morning. Some frost, some ice, and yes, in places some snow. For many, though, it will be a sunny day. Just don't expect it to be very warm. Join me later for a full forecast.
Hello there, very good morning to you on this Tuesday morning. You're very welcome to GB News Breakfast. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster. It's 8:01 and this is GB News Breakfast.
Yes, really?
I saw a picture of Harry Kane's statue.
Oh, yeah?
What do you think?
Looks like me.
When? Looks like you when? At what point? The future or the past?
1973.
Yeah. You know what? I like it. I think it's nice.
Of course you do. Fanboy over there.
I've actually got my little version of the statue, which I take with me everywhere. I just think the fact that it was... it's at his own old football club. He used to play at a club called Ridgeway Rovers when he was a kid. And it's there. And I like that idea, but I just think it should be in a more public place.
You think it should be in...
Everybody outside the Houses of Parliament is where it should be.
Oh, it doesn't look anything like him.
Oh, now, come on.
Oh, it's awful.
You don't think so? It does.
Looks nothing like
we will have it, but it does look a little bit like Jimmy Hill.
He looks like he should be on Red Dwarf.
Who, Harry or the statue?
Red Dwarf, the statue.
Right. What do you mean exactly?
The guy from British Empire. What was his name? The actor.
Chris Barry.
Chris Barry looks like him.
Looks like Chris Barry.
Doesn't it look like Harry Kane?
OK.
Chris Barry went to the same school as my kids.
Did he?
And they went to the same school as he did. Yeah, small world, isn't it?
It is a small world.
Yeah, statue still doesn't look like Harry Kane, but anyway.
I don't know, he looks fairly happy with it.
When I look at statues of me around the place, I sort of think, well, at least they all look like me.
Is that it?
Yeah, they all reflect how slim I am. And
is it usually the same pose, though?
Oh, do you not have a statue?
No, I've got a few. Yeah, there's a few. There might be.
Why don't you come to my house one day and I can show you around the various portraits on the wall?
Clobber you with one of them. There should be statues put up to you,
I love it.
putting up with this.
It's when people, they have these statues or pictures of themselves, and I've got a friend and he's got all these fake gold records, and they're all fake. And he's going, this is when I was given this. I'm thinking, no, you weren't yet a maid. So anyway.
Every time there was a painting or a statue offered to me, whatever.
Every time.
My kids would say, why do you want a picture of yourself? Why do you want,
And you say, because I'm vain, kids, that's why. That's the reason.
I was called narcissistic.
There you go.
No,
really?
When you phone me, Eamonn, up pops on my screen a portrait of you.
Oh, stop.
You've obviously saved that as your thing on your phone.
Right. Speak later, Mr. Paul. Thank you very much indeed. The farmers, they're out marching. They're in Westminster. Let's go to Will Hollis and he will tell us more about what's going on.
Good morning. Yes, we're on a stationary bus for a few minutes so we can speak to some farmers in a really nice, calm and balanced environment. I tell you, it was a little bit sketchy on some of the roads where there's quite a lot of snow. Let's speak to Zara, first of all, and her dad, Ross, family farmers. Just describe for me, what kind of farming do you do and what might be the effect of inheritance tax and everything you've heard in the budget?
We're a dairy and arable farm based in South Lincolnshire. It's basically, I'm the fourth generation coming in. It's all about long-term planning. It's a business side as well as the agricultural side, and that's where it's going to really affect. So we want to be able to plan for the future and make long-term investments, and this could really affect that.
And how are other farmers, maybe young farmers like you, feeling about the future of farming when there is a looming inheritance tax, when they hope to take on the family farm?
Farming itself has got a lot of challenges at the moment. We're producing amazing food, really high quality standards, but obviously climate is coming out, and we're trying to make investments that can help produce all of that. So the uncertainty of what's going forward makes that a lot harder.
Zara, thank you so much. Let's go a little bit further down the block, give you a bit of an atmosphere this morning, Eamonn and Isabel. Let's speak to Mark, who's a veg farmer. There's a number of different farmers here, whether it's dairy, vegetable farmers, arable farmers. Mark, just tell me a little bit about what the future of your farm might be under the new inheritance tax rules.
So basically, we're veg farmers near Boston. We're not big landowners because we can't afford the land at the minute to grow veg on, but we have a lot of assets with cold stores, machinery and that for veg, quite intensive production. So for us, investment is the key, and with this budget coming on, we can't afford to invest. So the future is mixed at the minute. It's not all just about the budget. I think we're all here to back British farming, which we don't think the government's doing for us at the minute. So we need that assurance and confidence from the government for us to go forward.
It's about the wider state of farming as well as inheritance tax, which has
been coming to a head for the last few years, and it's just time to make a stand and make our voices heard and say, look, government, we need your support. and back British farming.
Mark, that's the veg farmer from Boston. It's a packed out bus here. Let's quickly go to one more person. Let's talk to Heather. Heather, just remind me, what kind of farming do you do, and how might inheritance tax affect your family farm?
So my husband and I are arable and beef farmers in Lincolnshire near Boston. So we're just short of 500 acres. We have a young family, we're third generation, and I think farmers, we don't make a lot of profit, we don't make a lot of money, and if we have to pay that APR and BPR when anything happens to us, or our family have to pay that, it's just not going to be affordable or sustainable.
And this is a full bus because all of these people are going down to London to lobby their MPs, but also to meet with tens of thousands of other farmers in protest. Just describe for me, how does it feel being around so many like-minded farmers in a way that farmers haven't gathered together in many years, if not decades?
I think I listened to, it was something that came on social media a couple of weeks ago, and there was one farmer and he said, as farmers, we're not always going to agree on the best way to farm, the best tractor or whatever else, but what we will agree on is that we are a strong community and we want to produce food for our nation, and we want to be here and farm for the next generation.
Heather, here in Stamford in Lincolnshire, the bus is just starting to move, so we'll have to be very careful, particularly for our camera operator. But if you had one message for the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, or for the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, and the Labour government, what is it that you want them to do now and in the near future?
So I was lucky enough to be at the NFU conference last February when Keir Starmer spoke to us as farmers, and he promised that he would support us in the future, and we just don't feel that he's done that. I think I'd ask him to relook at the figures, to raise that threshold or make a complete U-turn, and to seriously look at fairness in the supply chain.
Heather, thank you so much. And to all of the other farmers, we are starting to move now, so we're getting a bit wobbly. And I was getting a little bit too close to the personal space of Heather's husband, Tom, there. But we are on the way to London. There's maybe about an hour or two to go before we'll be right in the middle of Westminster. But there is a lot of snow on the roads today, and some buses have been delayed in parts of the country.
Yeah, we can see that snow on the roof of the cars behind you and some of the walls and things. Yeah, what weather for this protest today? Well, we'll let you go so you can get safe and continue on your journey down to London. But I suppose if any group of people can protest in bad weather, it is the farmers.
Yeah.
They are used to being out in all weathers. But it's even snowing outside the office here.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen very often. In fact, I can't think that that's happened since I've worked here.
No, that's snow in London, right? We'll try and get some pictures of that. Just want to say it's such a big thing for those people to be off work today, not earning today, to be travelling down. Just think of what it means to them, the expense it is to them, and anybody who strikes, really. So it's a serious thing. It's a serious condition. It's interesting to see. We're on the bus there today. We're listening to what people have to say. I wonder, did people from the Treasury do that, or did politicians do that from the Department of Agriculture or whatever? But just interesting. Just put it out there. Let's go to Catherine Foster. Catherine, will now where are you? You're in Westminster. Okay. What are you expecting your end?
Yes, good morning, Eamonn and Isabel. Well, it is absolutely chucking it down in Westminster this morning. But as you say, farmers are used to terrible weather, used to being up in the middle of the night, and there will be many, many thousands of them congregating here today. One protest starting at 9 o'clock, another one at 11 o'clock to make their voices heard, because this inheritance tax change, they say, is potentially going to drive many family farms out of business, because they say that they simply won't be able to pay the bills. Many farmers are asset rich, sure, but cash poor. They're keen to emphasise that farmers have had a very tough time over the last years. Supermarket prices are very low for food. Many of them will tell you that that food is in fact too cheap. We've had all sorts of weather events. We've had the cost of living crisis, energy prices soaring, huge pressures on farmers, and they are beside themselves, many of them, for what this will mean. Now, the Environment Secretary, Steve Reed, met with the National Farmer Union President Tom Bradshaw last night. He is in listening mode, but they are not in changing their mind mode, at least not at the moment. And I interviewed Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, last Friday. She said that she thinks that farmers are getting a fair deal. Steve Reed is urging farmers to look at the facts and talk to their accountants. Now, the government says that a couple who co-own a farm are free of an inheritance tax for the first 3 million. Then it's at 20%. That's half the rate that the rest of us pay. They've got 10 years to pay it, no interest on it, and so on and so forth. And another way that they can avoid inheritance tax is the same way that any of us can, is to pass the farm on 7 years before you die. That is still a way to get round it. But of course, there's many farmers that are still working in their 80s, going out 7 days a week and working. And it's particularly hard for them because they don't have potentially 7 years. And we already tragically have had a suicide of one elderly farmer who simply couldn't bear the thought of his life's work, his family not being able to pay the bill, and the NFU very worried that there may be others like that.
OK, thanks very much, Catherine. It's going to be an interesting day, that is for sure. Our poll of the day is, of course, on this topic. We're asking, should farmers be given special exemption on inheritance tax? We'll have the results for you just after 9 o'clock from our breakfast audience, but from the full day of GB News results in Martin Daubney's show this afternoon, just go to gbnews.com/poll.
If I was to go out on a limb,
I think it'll be 97 or 99%.
Well, I'd be guessing you're pretty in favour of tax breaks for farmers. Let's have a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom. You've already heard that snow's falling in London, but we'll tell you that Britain's biggest retailers are facing costs of up to 7 billion quid a year after the Chancellor raised national insurance contributions for employers. Over 70 companies, including M&S, have written to the Chancellor to warn job losses are inevitable.
British Airways experienced a major system failure yesterday, leaving thousands of passengers facing delays and cancellations. A spokesperson for the airline said they were working to resolve the problem and apologised to any affected customers.
The Queen is said to be heartbroken following the death of her beloved terrier, Beth. Camilla adopted her Jack Russell from Battersea Cats and Dogs Home in 2011. It's understood the dog had an untreatable tumour and had to be put down over the weekend.
And some of you are waking up to snow this morning, with the Met Office issuing warnings of disruptions to train services, schools expected as well throughout the day. If you are seeing some snow outside of your window, send your pictures to gbviews@gbnews.uk and we'll get some of those on for you later on this morning. As I say, snow outside the building here, snow out in Lincolnshire and Stamford where Will Hollis was. So send us your snowy pics. It's a little bit early in the season, but always lovely to see snow pictures.
And let's see what the picture is like over the rest of the country. Good morning, Alex Deacon.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. For many of us, a distinctly wintry flavour to the weather this morning. There are ice and snow warnings in place. For quite a few of us, though, it will be a fine and sunny day, but don't expect any warmth. Sleet and snow has been crossing parts of the UK through the night, edging away from eastern areas this morning, but some pretty unpleasant conditions on some roads, and the snow showers continue to feed in through the day across northern Scotland. Staying a bit damp with outbreaks of rain across the southwest of England, but for many areas it'll brighten up with some sunshine, but that northerly wind bringing a real chill. Temperatures struggling at 3 or 4 degrees for many, and feeling even colder when you add on the strength of that wind, which will continue to bring snow showers in across northern Scotland. Significant accumulations of snow over the hills at lower levels, not huge amounts, but still some disruption is likely, with a few centimetres possible, and much more than that over the mountains. A few snow flurries may continue to edge into northern parts of Northern Ireland, so again potentially turning icy here as temperatures tumble. Generally a clear evening across much of Wales and the Midlands and southern England. Staying quite cloudy across the far southwest of England. Some rain showers coming in here, and then as we go through this evening and overnight, we'll see a few more of these showers coming down the eastern side of England. Again, a real mix of rain close to the coast, but some sleet and snow likely inland, particularly over hills. A few of those flurries coming into parts of Wales and Northern Ireland. So again, could turn icy as temperatures tumble well below freezing in rural spots. And again, feeling even colder on Wednesday with that brisk wind, bringing a few showers across eastern areas and some for Northern Ireland and Wales, and plenty more of those wintry showers keeping going into northern Scotland. Again, for a good chunk of the country, though, it's a dry, fine, sunny day to come tomorrow, but it will again be on the cold side with temperatures really struggling. 7 or 8 in the southwest, but for many other areas, 2 or 3.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed boiler repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Still to come today, 1,000 days since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine.
Yeah, we'll be discussing that next with Tobias Elwood. Don't move a muscle.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Restaurant St. Bart's executive head chef Johnny Crowe creates ramen with a British twist, using only the finest UK-sourced produce. As the only restaurant in London to hold both a Michelin star and a green Michelin star, St. Bart's emphasises sustainability and the diversity of British ingredients. Johnny joins me now. Johnny, congratulations on having these 2 Michelins. How do you get a Michelin green star?
Probably a better question for the inspectors, but I mean, I think it's down to a lot of hard work.
What hoops do you have to go through?
So I think it's working every day on it. The sustainability isn't something that you just achieve and then therefore you have it and you can sort of relax. It's about every day trying to be better, trying to make a restaurant and a business that is overly sustainable.
So what things do you do to make it sustainable?
So one of the main things that we've really tried to do is focusing on British produce, and actually, you know, part of that is about sustainability and food miles. A massive part of it for us was also about sort of helping the British economy and the farming economy and our fisheries as well. But yeah, no, the idea...
We have a lot of farms near St. Bart's, which is in the heart of the City of London.
Well, funnily enough, there's an amazing collective called Shrub Provisions who we use a hell of a lot, who work with farmers all around East Sussex. So it makes a difference from flying it in from Kenya or somewhere else like that. But no, like a big part of it was, one, using British produce to cut down on food miles, but also helping sustain our farming industry.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Just to say, it is the final week of the Christmas giveaway. You have been warned on that one. £25,000 and no.
Yeah. 25,000 and
25 pounds.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think it's something to do with the 25.
025. Okay, that's what you're getting. I'd give up the £25. It wouldn't matter to me. I wouldn't be that greedy. It'd be fine. Anyway, here's how you could win it.
There's just 36 days until Christmas, and it's the final week to see how you can enjoy it on us. That's £20,025 in tax-free cash to make 2025 fantastic. £5,000 to spend on gifts for all of the family. £500 in vouchers to buy a slap-up Christmas lunch at your favourite supermarket. And finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. Plus, we're going to get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2 or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
And I might say good luck to you as well when it comes to World War III, because Sweden has issued concerns and to its people and is saying, look, prepare for this. And how are they doing that?
Well, all sorts of things that they're being advised to do, stockpiling pet food, stockpiling food for themselves, making sure they've got iodine tablets in supply. Of course, they are very close to the border with Russia as well.
What does iodine tablets do?
Well, oh gosh, this gets technical, but it's to do with radiation and protection from, the impact of that.
OK, all of this after President Biden allowed President Zelensky to use these missiles, and Sir Keir Starmer promised Ukraine is at the top of his agenda. He's there at the G20 summit in Brazil.
Well, let's speak to Tobias Ellwood, former chair of the Defence Select Committee, about all of this. You know, we're hearing from the Kremlin in the last 24 hours that there will be palpable response if those American missiles are used. What does that necessarily look like? Because it's only last week we were reporting about Liz Truss studying weather charts, concerned in October 2022 about some sort of nuclear strike. We'll be the last ones to know. Should we be stocking up on iodine here?
Much to digest there. Firstly, can I just comment on the fact that we're having another public debate about whether we should or should not send another weapon system to Ukraine. It started with anti-tank weapons, main battle tanks, F-16, and now long-range missiles. I must ask, when did we get into this daft place of publicly broadcasting the kinds of weapons we may or may not see deployed on the battlefield, sharing with our enemy what we've ruled in or what we've ruled out? You know, Sun Tzu will be turning in his grave. We've allowed Russia to craft its own tactics based on our declarations rather than keeping Putin guessing, which is exactly what he does to us, as to where the threat might come from. This public debate needs to move behind into the corridors, into the powers that be to decide. It's a straightforward decision to approve targeting bases deep inside Russia, airfield munition storage bases and so forth, that are part of Putin's war effort. They are legitimate targets. It's been indecision from the very start, now 1,000 days, that has completely defined our entire commitment to helping Ukraine in its hour of need. And this decision surrounding ATACMS or storm centers should have been made months ago when the Prime Minister actually visited Washington, when the matter was discussed. So once again, it's very late in the day that we're making this decision. But if you want me to address Putin's nuclear threat, I'm very happy to do so. He has frequently responded in this way, attempting to spook us, to make us blink, believing that conflict could suddenly spiral out of control. But to step across that line would have such significant consequences for him personally and indeed for Russia. Any use of such weapons would immediately alienate China and India, his closest security allies, and it would certainly unite NATO, prompting a minimum conventional response from America and Britain, which would likely see all of Russia's land-based assets in Ukraine targeted and destroyed by stealth fighters. Putin will also lose control of his own war agenda, and that could threaten his status in Moscow. And, of course, this costly war there is not particularly tolerated. And finally, just around the corner, we've got Trump about to enter the White House. Is he really likely to do anything that might jeopardize the future discussions about where Ukraine might go, bearing in mind he's coming into Washington, D.C. So these are the bigger picture things. Of course, it's a very serious statement. We shouldn't dismiss it. But let's keep it into context and let's not blink.
Just because he hasn't doesn't mean he won't. And there is always that theory that, you know, he won't do it because of the reaction. Well, if he does it, it's kind of game over anyway, isn't it? So that probably isn't a deterrent, the threat of the reaction. But I suppose my question to you is, do you feel closer to peace today than you did before this announcement from Biden on using these American-based, whether or not you think it's right that we know about it? Are we in a safer position here in the UK today than we were?
No, the world is getting more dangerous, not less. I've been saying that for some time. And we haven't woken up to the fact that this isn't a war between Ukraine and Russia. This is a war between Russia and the West. It's an ideological war. And I've said, I think, on your program before, Russia is already attacking the West and indeed Britain on a daily basis through coercion, through cyber attacks. We've even had assassination attempts on British soil as well. There's a cohesion developing between Russia, China, and indeed Iran to exploit the weakness, indeed, of our world order. And that's where Ukraine is simply where the battle is at the moment. Failing to put that fire out there will simply allow Putin to rearm and regroup and continue his war to fight another day. And that is exactly what concerns Sweden. So this is the bigger picture that we need to recognize. This is why we shouldn't have left it so long to support our friends in Ukraine. And it's why Putin has been able to survive up until now, because we've been spooked by this rhetoric.
Thanks for what you've been saying, Tobias Ellwood, former chair of the Defence Select Committee. Thank you very much indeed. The time is now 8:27. We're going to cross to the preparations for the protest march, the Farmers' March in London. Livestock farmer Colin Rayner. Colin, good morning to you.
Good morning, Eamonn. Good morning.
What are you feeling about today, Colin?
We are angry as sin. As farmers, we have been betrayed to and lied to by the Labour Party and the Labour government. Before the election, they came to the NFU conference and promised us they wouldn't put up taxes. They promised they wouldn't put up the inheritance tax, and they lied. And they're now blaming that if they don't get this money, they won't have enough money for the National Health Service. If the government sold every farm in this country and used that money for the National Health Service, it still wouldn't be enough. And we are here today because we have been betrayed. And my farm has been owned by the same family since 1551. I'm only a caretaker, my generation, and my children and my cousins, they will be caretakers for the next generation. We are here to produce cheap food for this country, and safe food. And our family survived the First World War. Many of my members fell on the battlefields of Flanders. Our farm was shot up and bombed during the Second World War, having farm workers killed. We're not about to lie down and have our family inheritance stolen from us to waste money on the vanity projects of the Labour Party.
What do you feel about that inference that the state of the NHS is somehow the fault of farmers, and that you could reverse this? Therefore, you're obviously not being selfish, you're also being greedy, you're not paying your fair share. It's a pretty damning indictment, isn't it?
It is. I think it's disgusting and despicable to blame the farmers that the National Health Service isn't functioning. It's because they just waste money. Just waste money. And as I said, if they sold every farm in this country and put all that money to the National Health Service, you'd still have to wait for appointments, still have to wait for operations, and the hospitals will still be falling down.
Do you think
as farmers, we think it's very low and despicable?
Yeah, but what do you think the general public think? Do you think many of them are gullible enough to swallow that dirty political message? It's really bad political fighting. It's quite grim. Do you think that there are going to be people who will? We've just been standing outside the Farmers Club, and there were some scaffolders there, putting up scaffolding in this rain and snow, and they said, "God bless the farmers." And everywhere I go, the public love the farmers. They don't love this government. They love the farmers because we look after them. And just remember, it's always the farmers that come first when this country's in trouble. When there's floods, it's farmers that come and help rescue people. When there's snow, it's farmers that clear the roads.
when we have trouble, it's always farmers.
Yeah, and goodness me, it's been
the
difficult
farmers like
weather,
us,
hasn't it, recently
the politicians don't like us either.
Yeah, and goodness me, the conditions for
We've
farming.
had awful weather.
Yeah, it's been awful. But I suppose the government will be absolutely steadfast in their belief that this is fair and proportionate. And the Independent Institute for Fiscal Studies say that this won't affect the vast majority of farms, and that actually you already have more generous inheritance tax benefits than most people. So what would you say to those arguments?
My argument's more lies from this government. The NFU have produced their figures, and it's just total lies and fabrication. And it's basically they're throwing stones from the greenhouse and they're trying to make the mud stick on farmers. And I think it's shameful of them. And it's lies. Today, why are 26,000 farmers coming here today to protest it against if it's only going to affect 500 farmers?
Well, Colin, let me say the Prime Minister is now speaking back. Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, is speaking back. They don't look as if they're going to come up with a compromise for you. They don't look as if they're going to do business with you on this one. Is this winnable for you?
Well, my view is the government won't change. And we won't change. There will be an impasse, and I think this will be the poll tax, the legislation the Conservatives brought in the 80s. I think this may bring down the government eventually.
Do you foresee empty shelves in supermarkets? Do you see... sorry, I can see you're battling very noisy traffic there. I'll just let that siren pass for a second. Yeah, do you see empty shelves in the supermarkets, price rises, and the possibility that a lot of these farms will be sold and bought up by foreign owners?
Well, basically, it's going to be a field day for foreign owners buying up farmland, and we're lost to the family farm. There will be shelves empty this winter due to the floods in Spain's awful weather throughout Europe. And also, why should we grow food if we're going to lose money? And I've got 3 daughters who want to carry on farming, and I am the 10th generation. I might be the last generation that farms my farm. And we've got a government that wants to cover our countryside in solar panels where they could put them on buildings. You know, I think we have an insane government. I feel quite strongly about it.
Yeah, well, we're gonna feel what you and a lot of colleagues are up to today, and see and watch you and join in those marches. But Colin, thank you for making yourself available to us, and hopefully we'll get to speak later on in the day as well.
Yeah, thank you. And we're enjoying the weather down here. We love the weather. Farmers' weather never lets us down.
Yeah, good old flat cap. You'll be fine. Thanks ever so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, when you hear about, you know, he's got 3 daughters and he worries that that'll be the end of his family, you know, and he was talking about grandparents that died in Flanders fields. You know, these are the backbone of Britain, British families, and I think he might be right. I think this could be a poll tax moment for the Labour government. I think it could be probably the standout issue from the budget that will really win hearts and minds.
Well, it's an interesting thing. I mean, instead of standing up and looking after people who have a heritage and a history with the country, we're obsessed with people who come into the country from other countries and have no history or tradition with us. It's just, when I look at the physical work that farmers have to do, and I'm obsessed. I watch all those programmes on Channel 5, and Channel 4, and BBC 2, and BBC 1, whatever. And would I be a farmer? No. I've worked as a farming reporter. I've looked at it. I couldn't do it. I wouldn't be man enough to do it. I just couldn't, or woman enough to do it. It is real slog.
Well, you watch Jeremy Clarkson's programme and you see the difficulties that they go through in trying to make, you know, their crops work and be viable or sell. You know, if they get a bit of TB, the whole lot have to be killed. If they have too much rain, then a whole crop is unviable. It is really difficult. The margins are already really squeezed. Are you in the countryside? Do you think that Labour understands the British countryside, the rural way of life? And what is the future if all of these farms are sold off? What will our green and pleasant land look like? Let us know what you think. gbnews.com/your say.
Got Paul, he's got the sport right after this.
The latest GB News travel. Good morning. There's snow across much of the north of England this morning, with train services suspended between the Bradford interchange and Wakefield Kirkgate, and buses replacing trains between Halifax and Huddersfield. In Derbyshire, the A628 Woodhead Pass is closed each way between Tintwistle and the Flouch roundabouts. The A628 also closed between Hollingworth and the Flouch roundabouts. The A57 Snake Pass is closed each way between the Ladybow Reservoir and Royal Oak Inn at Glossop. And in Cheshire, the A537 Cat and Fiddle roads closed each way between Macclesfield and Buxton. Now, in Staffordshire, the A50 is closed eastbound from the Blythe Bridge roundabout to Uttoxeter after an accident earlier. In London, the South Circular is partly blocked by an accident at East Dulwich, causing queues each way. And on the M26 in Kent, it's taking around half an hour in westbound queues approaching M25 because of roadworks. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Got Paul, he's got the latest on the sports situation in the Nations League last night.
Your favourite?
I was going to go through the entire Nations League and how it works. Yeah. But after your reaction last time...
Paul, I just get too cynical about it. It's all money-making. All of this is drawing, making more games, whether it's the Champions League or whether it's this league, and it's just like, when are they going to realise we all don't care? There are too many matches, too many fixtures, and we don't want them all.
That's the end of my job. I'm going to have to find something else to talk about.
I do think it's ridiculous.
No, Poland won, Scotland 2. I agree with you. It's all about the league, the nation. They're glorified friendlies. That's what they are. Luxembourg drew with Northern Ireland. It's good for Northern Ireland because they've moved up and they'll be playing a better class of team now. And the big one, Liechtenstein won, San Marino 3. There were more players, I think, on the pitch than there probably were in the countries. So the two of the smallest nations. Rodrigo Bentancur, I want to mention him. Spurs player has been given a 7-match domestic ban by the FA. Now, this is
Can we explain to people why?
Yeah, this racial slur. Now, it's about Heung-min Son. It was meant in jest. Not that that means anything, because a racial slur is a racial slur. Basically, he was being interviewed in Uruguay, and when he was asked about a shirt and say, "Oh, could we have a Spurs shirt?" he was then told, you know, "Oh well, I can't." You're talking about Sonny, and then saying that everybody looks the same from South Korea. So that was the problem. That was the joke that was made. The FA have now found out about this, and then he's had a hearing, and basically he's been banned for 7 games. He's fined £100,000. There's also been, he said that it was used in sarcasm, but then again, there you go, it was said, so it can't be questioned. So he's been banned now for 7 games, and these are only domestic games. So in Europe, he is allowed to play, but not in this country. Now, interestingly, Enzo Fernandez, who played for Chelsea, also made a racial slur by doing a song that was in Argentina, but he's got away with it because the thing is, it's under a different jurisdiction. The weird thing is that because Bentancur was in Uruguay, not playing for Uruguay at the time, he can be fined by the FA. Enzo Fernandez was representing Argentina at the time he was there, which would then come under Argentinian jurisdiction.
Gotcha.
So there you go. So he's now been banned for 7. He's now been banned for 7.
You don't need an arbiter to tell you shouldn't be making racial.
No, exactly. I mean, he's saying.
His argument is, does he see it as racial, and how many people actually see it as racial or just funny or not? I'm not saying I do. I'm just saying. We can't even. I mean, I saw a TV station which wouldn't even repeat the crime that he was.
They wouldn't even say what it was.
Yeah, because everybody gets so petrified about all these things.
But the thing is, Eamonn, I heard it explained very well. Someone said yesterday, well, you know, if you're a bank robber in one country, then it still will work over here. You know, it's the crime. It doesn't matter. The fact that it's been done. You can't let it go. Okay. So anyway, it's 7 games. Some are saying it's too much. Should we look at Harry Kane?
Yeah, let's look at. I think it looks like he's on Red Dwarf.
Let's look at Harry Kane, shall we? The Peter May Sports Centre in East London. It was going to be at Chingford Station. That's Harry on the right, by the way, and that's his statue there on the left.
It's not exactly Madame Tussauds, is it?
Yeah, I know, but I've seen some bad Madame Tussauds waxworks. It's. The thing in the background, there's a mural, or as I saw someone on Twitter say earlier, a lovely mural in the background, but it's a mural of Harry Kane's career, and there's the statue of Harry. You know, you look at it and think, you know, it looks like a very thin little Harry.
That's what I'm trying to say. Why wouldn't they made the body to scale, if you're with me, so that at least the body would reflect him?
It looks...
It must be very hard to do a sculpture of a statue, because they're always
Well, then don't do it.
Yeah,
I think often
they're not always. They're not all.
Normally,
they're not all.
awful.
But they have the possibility to be.
Yeah.
But they're not all.
I think often the artist would go, but that's how I see them.
Yeah.
That reflects their personality.
License.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think it's a nice statue, but of course it's Harry Kane.
Yeah,
so
exactly. You love
I'm
anything,
going
Harry.
to say that.
You're an absolute fanboy.
It's the honour. It's the honour of it.
It's the honour.
Okay, my friend.
Thank you.
We'll have one for you tomorrow.
What, statue?
Statue, yeah.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Yes, it's easy.
I'd appreciate that.
We got something knocked together.
Yes, thank you.
Very good.
Right, how many of us are waking up to the first snowfall of the season? We're asking you to send in your pictures. We saw Will Hollis out and about on his battle bus with all those angry farmers. There was lots of snow in the background there in Lincolnshire. Reports from our team that there's snow outside the building here in central London. So get outside your house, take some pickies, send them to gbnews@gbnews.uk, that old-fashioned email address, and we'll get those pictures on the telly for you. You are tuned into Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel. See you in a moment.
Very good.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
The row over Prince Harry's US visa will be brought back into focus.
Earlier this year, Nigel Farage asked Donald Trump about this very issue. Let's take a listen.
No one knows the truth. What did he put on his American visa form?
If they know something about the drugs and if he lied, he'll have to take appropriate action.
Appropriate action? What could that mean?
Well, the fractured relationship between the president-elect and the royal couple, or ex-royal couple, I should say, began in 2020 when the Sussexes urged American voters to stay clear of Trump, urging them to reject hate speech, misinformation and online negativity.
OK, well, to break down this story for us, we're joined by royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams. Richard, so what are the chances? What are the chances of Trump saying, you know what, Harry, time to get out of here?
I very strongly suspect that the new administration has other priorities, and also it wouldn't want the enormous amount of fuss. Can you just imagine it in hypothetical situations if it happened? I mean, we've seen Nigel Farage there get an answer from Donald Trump, which implied that this might be looked into, and it might.
The Americans say that if you have taken illegal drugs, you're not allowed immigration status. Prince Harry, in his book, said he'd taken illegal drugs, and there he is with American immigration status. I mean, how do the two things make sense? Either he lied in the book, or he lied to the US government.
I can't see that the future administration would want to be involved with problems with the British royal family, which obviously would occur if this happened.
Yeah, that's true. Richard Fitzwilliams, thank you very much, as ever.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're going to go through the papers and talk about lots of important things, but can we start by something a little bit trivial? I don't know if you can see it on there. This is Nicole Kidman. How old is she, Andy?
57.
57. I have to say, I don't like it, and I don't like it a lot. What do you think? Because I just see it and I think, must you? She looks like she's a cross between being taken hostage and sitting on the toilet, and it's just not necessary.
But why the pose, Andy? What's she doing it for?
It's for Jo Malone.
Oh,
what, the candle maker?
Absolutely, yeah.
I wonder how much waxing she's getting done and how many wicks she's got on her candle.
Yeah. I think good on her. I think she looks great.
No, there's a time and a place, and you wouldn't want that to be your mother.
No, I don't agree with that argument. I think I don't like the pose and I don't like the clothes, but basically she's perfectly entitled.
Well, she is, but I just think it's a bit unbecoming.
I agree.
Absolutely amazing and beautiful actress. Why are you hostage on the toilet? Someone tell me.
I don't know.
Well, it might keep her relevant in terms of profile of things.
Hasn't it? Yeah. Right, anyway, enough of that. Yep. Let's talk about Grit Britain, Andy, because all these pictures of snow flooding into our inbox this morning.
Yeah.
It feels as though the first dump has arrived.
I think it's snowing in London, seems to be snowing all across the north. I think it was -8 in the Highlands yesterday, so it's happening. Be prepared for transport to grind to a halt, I suppose. But, hey, let's not be negative. I think it's nice to... We love the snow. Looks beautiful. Winter's coming, Christmas is coming.
I love your positivity, Andy, but I just can't see the UK working with a drop of snow.
Well, no, we are likely to grind to a halt pretty quickly, aren't we?
Yes. Trains, buses, the IT glitches, schools. Schools will be closed. That'll be the next thing.
Well, apparently it's snowy outside central London. Now, there must be... Yeah, this is pictures of London, actually, that we're looking at. How many times a year does it snow in London? I don't know the answer, but it's rare.
Are we seeing snow there? I can't see snow.
It's sleet, really.
Yeah, I was going to say, it looks more like that horrible, sort of sludgy...
Sleety. Well, it's so much warmer in the
sleet.
capital than everywhere else because of all of our bodies generating that heat and all of our energy. But if it's snowing in London, then it's probably snowing pretty much everywhere else.
Else. It is,
so
it is, it is.
coming in and we'll turn some of those around for you. Where do you want to go, Eamonn?
Prime children for jobs AI can't do.
I think this is an excellent op-ed. It's almost like an op-ed that Bill Bailey is urging the government to actually bring in, like a King's Charter almost, of crafting for kids in schools. You think about it, he makes the example of hand-stitched cricket balls. You can't get an AI or a robot or a piece of machinery to do that. And making kilts, stitching. The art of stitching, the art of repairing, I think, is a great thing. We've got the Repair Shop programme on BBC at the moment. That is doing so well. Why is it doing well? Because we need to look back with nostalgia and also look forward and keep repairing instead of this very, very simple marketing tool of things don't last, rebuy. It's just ridiculous.
Which jobs do you think are at risk when you think of, traditionally pushy parents might say, right, be a lawyer, be a doctor? I'd say both of those are at risk from AI. A lot of medicine could be covered by that.
A lot of surgery.
A lot of surgery. Going into the city to make money, pretty much all of that will be sorted by AI. But things like being an electrician, a roofer, a nurse... AI can't replicate.
No, exactly. I mean, I think
is this going to be a huge rebalance of people's jobs?
It could be because professional services have driven the UK economy. That doesn't mean they're more valuable jobs, because they're not. But in terms of the driving economic growth into that's what's been kind of keeping the economy afloat for the last 30 years. But lots of those jobs are going to be at risk. Anything that involves drafting documents, letters, those sorts of things, AI can do it in a second.
I think actually it will help children's mental health issues that are presenting increasingly more often now. And I think if they were to take time away from the devices to actually sit and focus on doing something that they can actually see the end result of.
But I do think kilts and cricket balls is quite niche. I mean, I can see lots of manual jobs, but kilts and cricket balls...
Well, here's something that I like the sound that somebody should instigate: escaping from subscription traps. Stories in the Mirror that's going to be made easier. Now, I don't see why it's so difficult if you sign up for something and then you say, I don't want to do that anymore. Why it takes so long to get out of it, why it is so difficult for you to get out of it. And Andy, what's your view on this one?
Yeah, so the government's brought forward plans to basically make it harder for some of these websites, these subscription services, to trap people. And, all of those hoops you have to jump through when you want to end a monthly subscription, they basically want to make it much easier and much more transparent, that when you're signing up for a free trial, for example, how often do we sign up for free trials, forget about them, and then the direct debit just comes out every month? So the government says that the average family wastes £14 a month on unwanted subscriptions, and they're going to try and make it easier to get out of them. I think it's a really good thing.
I think it's a really good thing, because it's so easy just to forget. It's one click sometimes, and you've fallen into, a subscription that you might not actually want or need.
Well, I clicked, I saw my monthly subscription for Sky Television yesterday, and I thought, what are people on about who complain about their BBC licence, right? Which is £160 a year, whatever. Where you would be very lucky to get away with paying just £160 a month on Sky. And that's your Sky, then your Netflix and your Paramount TV and your Disney and your Apple and your... Goodness sake.
And the sport really drives the cost of that, doesn't it? The Sky Sports is incredibly expensive. Yeah, you're right. It just goes through the roof and you sort of forget about it. So, yeah, I mean...
But the thing that gets me is the amount of sport that no one cares less about or would ever watch. And I could name them, but then I'd be criticised for it. But there's so much sport, no one cares less. You care about football and then...
Rugby?
Well, would I pay for it? Yeah, probably might.
It's been off the BBC now. It's been removed.
Yeah.
You can't watch it. Can't sit down and watch This Autumn Nations at the moment. It's all on TNT or whatever it's called.
Is that where? I've been watching it all, but I didn't know that.
Oh, you're lucky.
Yeah.
Liam's got a subscription.
I didn't know that.
You've clicked a button somewhere, Isabel.
I'll be having a word. But he did just let me renew my Disney subscription so I could watch Rivals. But he said just for the month, and then I was going to cancel it at the end. But I'll probably forget.
It's a must-watch, though, isn't it, Rivals?
Great.
Absolutely, it's a riot.
And it was
great
just
fun.
Reminded me of the good old days in television.
That's the other problem. You have to,
That's bad, I'll say, whichever way you want to look at it.
Guys,
anyway.
Thank you very much indeed.
You're very welcome, thank you.
Been a nice morning with Claire Muldoon and Andy Williams. Thank you both.
Right, with all this snow about, your forecast is all important today. Will you be affected in your area? And do send us in pictures if you have been. Here's Alex Deakin with everything you need to know. Otherwise, we'll be back in a minute.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. For many of us, a distinctly wintry flavour to the weather this morning. There are ice and snow warnings in place. For quite a few of us, though, it will be a fine and sunny day, but don't expect any warmth. Sleet and snow has been crossing parts of the UK through the night, edging away from eastern areas this morning, but some pretty unpleasant conditions on some roads, and the snow showers continue to feed in through the day across northern Scotland. Staying a bit damp with outbreaks of rain across the southwest west of England, but for many areas it'll brighten up with some sunshine, but that northerly wind bringing a real chill. Temperatures struggling at 3 or 4 degrees for many, and feeling even colder when you add on the strength of that wind, which will continue to bring snow showers in across northern Scotland. Significant accumulations of snow over the hills at lower levels, not huge amounts, but still some disruption is likely, with a few centimetres possible, and much more than that over the mountains. A few snow flurries may continue to edge into northern parts of Northern Ireland, so again potentially turning icy here as temperatures tumble. Generally a clear evening across much of Wales and the Midlands and southern England. Staying quite cloudy across the far southwest of England. Some rain showers coming in here, and then as we go through this evening and overnight we'll see a few more of these showers coming down the eastern side of England. Again, a real mix of rain close to the coast, but some sleet and snow likely inland, particularly over hills. A few of those flurries coming into parts of Wales and Northern Ireland, so again could turn icy as temperatures tumble well below freezing in rural spots, and again feeling even colder on Wednesday with that brisk wind bringing a few showers across eastern areas and some for Northern Ireland and Wales, and plenty more of those wintry showers keeping going into northern Scotland. Again, for a good chunk of the country though, it's a dry, fine, sunny day to come tomorrow, but it will again be on the cold side with temperatures really struggling. 7 or 8 in the southwest, but for many other areas 2 or 3.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. There's disruption, especially across parts of the north of England this morning because of snow. It's left train services suspended between the Bradford Interchange and Wakefield Kirkgate, and buses replacing trains between Halifax and Huddersfield. The A628 Woodhead Pass is closed each way between Tintwistle and the Flouch Roundabout. The A57 Snake Pass is closed each way between the Ladybell Reservoir and Royal Oak Inn at Glossop. The A537 Cat and Fiddle Road is closed each way between Macclesfield and the A54 at Buxton. In Staffordshire, the A50 is closed eastbound from the Blythe Bridge roundabout to Uttoxeter after an accident causing delays. The M4 in Swansea is blocked eastbound by an accident at junction 47 west of Swansea, causing queues, and on the M26 in Kent it's taking roughly half an hour in westbound queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
This is the final week to grab your chance to win Christmas on Us this year. There's £20,025 in tax-free cash. There's £5,000 to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £500 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. We'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Farmers fight back as they take to the streets to protest over the Chancellor's inheritance tax raid.
With warnings that turnout could be as high as 40,000 people. and hundreds of police officers are on standby to keep the peace.
That's as the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, faces a backlash as she tells farmers they must cough up to fund the NHS.
Earlier, the Minister for Crime, Policing and Fire, Dame Diana Johnson, defended Labour's decision.
Whilst recognising this is difficult, that there has been a suite of measures put in place to help those small number of farms that will be affected.
The Prime Minister cozies up to China as he meets with his counterpart at the G20 summit in Rio, becoming the first British PM to do so since Theresa May.
Snow season is out there this morning. Disruption to travel and schools hits all over the country as you send in the best of your snowy straps this morning.
And jungle life kicks in as I'm a Celeb camp mates get teary-eyed. We'll be finding out all about this very shortly.
Very wintry flavour to the weather this morning. Some frost, some ice, and yes, in places some snow. For many, though, it will be a sunny day. Just don't expect it to be very warm. Join me later for a full forecast.
Hello there, very good morning to you on this Tuesday morning. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster, and this is GB News Breakfast.
We have been gathering and collating pictures of the scenery out there, the snowy scenery. And let's have a look, first of all, at
Annie's from Leicester. She's just sent that in. Wow, that really is a snowy covering. And we've also got this from VJ, who lives in the Midlands this morning. Oh, that's absolutely beautiful. Such a quintessential snowy, sort of Christmassy garden scene, isn't it?
Yeah.
Lovely.
And here's a video. Deborah, good morning. Thank you for your little vid.
Doesn't say where that is, but thank you for sending that in. Jim in Darwin has sent us this. Oh, wow, everywhere. Absolutely covering all the hills as far as the eye can see there.
From Nottingham, Gail, let's have a look.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a couple of inches there. It's not, you know, just a small amount of snow. That's a decent smattering today. Keep those pictures coming in. We'll keep putting those on the screen throughout the day here on GB News. And, of course, the bad weather, not only is it making probably a bit of a nightmare for these journeys of farmers trying to make their way to Westminster, but I suppose not ideal conditions for a protest. Nevertheless, we are expecting somewhere in the region of possibly 40,000 or so of them, all protesting over recent changes to inheritance tax.
Well, the nation's most influential farmer, Jeremy Clarkson, will be there alongside the likes of Nigel Farage, with Elon Musk putting out a few messages on his social media platform X, calling the government's decision, he calls it Stalin-like.
Well, let's go live to our correspondent, Will Hollis, who has been battling that poor weather this morning on that bus full of angry farmers this morning. Will, bring us up to date on where you are on that journey.
Yes, well, the snow has been terrible. We're now on a clear stretch of the A1 coming down the motorway, and it's pretty clear now, but in parts of Lincolnshire and the Midlands, Nottinghamshire particularly, we know that roads have been iced over, and even some of the NFU organised buses haven't been able to set off or haven't been able to set off as early as they would have liked. Maybe they'll arrive a little bit later, but this is a day of action where 1,800 NFU members are going to meet with their MPs, and there's 10,000 or so more farmers, maybe even more, that are going to be gathering to show their support for the cause. Let's talk to some of those farmers now. I'm just going to squeeze in here next to Percy and his son Tom as well. I'm just going to squeeze in because it is quite tricky here. Percy, just tell me a little bit about your family farm and your intentions when you choose to retire, or unfortunately when you're not around here anymore and you need to give the farm to somebody else. There's not an easy way to say that, is there?
No, there's not. No, I mean, I'm from a long line of a farming family going back to many generations, and my father was a tenant on a farm near Stamford, and then once I'd finished college, he said, well, we need to try and find you another farm, and I was very lucky to get a tenancy of a farm about 10 miles away from where I was, and and you know, he helped me get set up and started farming.
And as a lifelong farmer, what was your reaction to the news about inheritance tax, but all the other things as well that you heard in the budget, and what it would mean for your family-grown business?
Well, I think all the things we heard in the budget were very negative as far as small businessmen, farmers, and people who run their own businesses. I think that the whole tone was very negative, and it seemed very political as well. You know, sort of anti-business, and so that's in the first instance. That was the real feeling. And then when you got down to the detail, running a farm over, the son joined me 20 years ago now, and you know, it suddenly sort of feels as though the feet have been taken away from us, and how are we going to continue?
You're looking back at how farming has been for the last 20, 30 years. What's farming like now for you, and what are the prospects for you, Tom?
So farming's obviously has its ups and downs like any business, but at the end of the day, a lot of it is based on a sort of a high asset base with a low income, and on that basis, you know, that's the concern, is how do you pay the taxes that have been announced in the budget when you know, you're not making enough income from that asset base.
And what might it mean for the future of you now inheriting the farm?
So I don't look at the farm as I own it. I look at it as I'm a custodian of that land. I never want to sell it at all. It's there hopefully to pass on to my children and their children, and that's how I see it. And I just want to be able to make a reasonable living out of it in the, you know, and have it there for our use.
Tom and Percy, thank you so much. We are on a packed bus, but I just want to get a little bit more information from one of the NFU chairmen for this part of Lincolnshire. Just tell me, what does the APR and the BPR, the agricultural property relief and the business property relief, really mean for farmers?
Well, it's a way of negating tax being paid so that businesses can keep moving on. APR seems to be the headline, but it's BPR, it's national insurance increase, it's minimum wage increase, it's carbon tax coming in. It feels like death of a thousand cuts to farming businesses. We've gone through some of the worst times recently, from the Ukrainian war to the pandemic to the worst flooding we've had in 100 years recently. Businesses aren't that profitable right now, and to be having more costs loading onto us is quite devastating. And it's anyone working in the industry now, I'm looking to get to death and thinking that's the problem. Keeping the business running today is a problem.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you speaking to us. It is a busy bus, and I know people have got a lot of conversations that we're interrupting, and there's a little bit of rain seeping through the window as well, and we're trying to hang on, but farmers are trying to hang on as well. That's what we're hearing today on this bus down from Lincolnshire.
Will, thank you.
You must be learning a lot, Will, yourself, finding out things you didn't know, just talking to people there.
Crikey me.
There we go. Well, do you know what? They were an eloquent bunch, weren't they? Really well spoken.
I often ask people questions and they say, crikey me to me.
Crikey me, that was a tricky one.
Yeah, I think you're right. The level of conversation, they're all very intelligent people.
And outraged.
And I think it's quite sad. I was listening there to one of the guys being interviewed, and he was talking about being a tenant farmer, and people just assume they own these properties and they're there, and who's cashing them in? Yeah. What are they doing with the money if that is the case?
Fundamental misunderstanding of the countryside. Let's get some analysis on all of this from our political correspondent, Catherine Forster. Catherine, Rachel Reeves doesn't seem to be in the mood for any sort of U-turn. She's absolutely determined that farmers have to pay their share of inheritance tax to prop up public services, and that this tax is fair and proportionate. But could this be a poll tax moment for this new government?
Well, certainly farmers are incredibly angry, and we had a taste of what's to come today in Westminster in North Wales on Saturday, where the Prime Minister was, and farmers gathered with their tractors. Of course, the Prime Minister did not speak to them, and he's not here now. We know he's at the G20 summit in Rio, but farmers are gathering here at Church House in Westminster. They're having a briefing with the National Farmers Union President, Tom Bradshaw. Then they're going over to Westminster, having meetings with MPs, and at 11 o'clock this morning there's going to be another big demonstration. Jeremy Clarkson, probably the most famous farmer of all, will be speaking amongst many, many others. And they say that family farms, many of them simply won't be able to pay this because although they may be asset rich, they are cash poor. They say they operate on tiny, tiny profit margins. We've had flooding, we've had cost of living increases. So the argument from the government that there's a fair deal for farmers is not washing with them. However, it does look at the moment like the government has no intention of budging, and they're saying that they can claim £3 million per couple, and then it's payable at only 20%, and that over 10 years.
OK, Catherine, thank you. Well, let's cross to our very own Bev Turner, who is also out and about in Westminster for us this morning. And Bev, you've been speaking to farmers, getting a sense of how frustrated they are about all of this. Bring us up to speed on what they're saying to you. Good morning.
Yeah, morning both. Morning from a very cold Whitehall down here in Westminster. But I'm not going to complain about the weather today, not when there are farmers in the vicinity, because of course to farmers there's no such thing as bad weather. My guest here, John Young, was just saying no such thing as bad weather, just the wrong clothes. Morning, John. Tell us why you've made quite a complicated journey from Northumberland to be here this morning.
I feel passionate about what the farmers have got to say. I feel very passionate about farming, being a fifth-generation farmer. I'm only a tenant farmer, and I don't really fit into the category that the government have brought in with this tax. But if I don't stand up for other people and help and support them, and we act and stay together as a community, then we would just lose. So I'm here to support everyone else. But, you know, I'm very passionate about farming, and we need it as an industry in this country. We need it.
How easy is life as a farmer at the moment? Tell us about your farm and what you do.
So I'm fifth generation. We've had the farm 125 years in January. It's not easy. I don't make any money on the farm. I run the farm because it's in my blood. I run the farm because I've got a son who's 21-year-old who's passionate about farming. And I think people need to understand that, you know, we need farmers on a daily basis. We need farmers to feed this nation. And no matter what you do, whether you're having breakfast cereal, whether you're having a sandwich you've picked up from your local butcher, Marks and Spencer's or McDonald's, a farmer's been involved with that food. And we need that.
And it's emotional. Like, I can see you getting upset because your journey, I mean, even your journey just to get here has taken you nearly 2 days and a 3 o'clock in the morning of train, and that's how motivated you guys are to be here.
We are very motivated, and you know, I've spoken to people from Devon, I've spoken to people from Scotland, I've spoken to people just 5 minutes ago from in Lancashire who travelled down on the coach. I came down on the train, and we had snow and everything on the way down. But you know, we're here for the purpose of standing up for the farming community, for the agricultural community, for the rural community, to get rid of this tax. But not only that, some of the other hidden taxes that are brought in through that budget.
How many people do you expect to be here this morning? It's still early. There aren't many farmers around at the moment. People are going about their daily commute as normal here in London. But I think if rumours are to be believed on social media, particularly, and the WhatsApp groups that are going around, there could be tens of thousands of farmers here today.
I think there'll be tens of thousands. I've spoken to quite a few people. I've spoken to some friends who are coming down from Lincoln. They've got buses and trains and stuff organised, and you know, people like Ollie Bloggs, who's been organising this. He's got a big following of people, and there's people that have come down yesterday. And there's going to be a lot of people here.
Yeah. OK, well, I'll be bringing you lots of reports from here this morning on Britain's Newsroom. Back to the studio now.
Thank you, Beverly. Thank you very much indeed. Let's get a poll update. We've been running this throughout the programme, asking, should farmers be given special exemptions on inheritance tax?
Yes, and so far 96% of you think they should. Only 4 of you think they shouldn't. That final result will be in Martin Daubney's show this afternoon. And if you would like to cast your vote, you just need to go to gbnews.com/poll.
OK. It's the final week of the Christmas giveaway, and we're on the countdown for the big day. You could win £25,000.
And £25.
£25,000.
25,000.
25. Why would bother me the extra 25?
Because it's 2025 next year, apparently.
£25,025. OK, it's a lot. OK. And it doesn't stop those other things,
Oh,
isn't
it doesn't stop there. We've got shopping vouchers and a GB News Christmas gift, which I don't know what's in that. I reckon there's a bauble with your face on it, and goodness me, that would make a lot of people's Christmases come true. If you haven't entered, make sure you do.
There's just 36 days until Christmas, and it's the final week to see how you could enjoy it on us. That's £20,025 in tax-free cash to make 2025 fantastic. £5,000 to spend on gifts for all of the family. £500 in vouchers to buy a slap-up Christmas lunch at your favourite supermarket. And finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. Plus, we're going to get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2 or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Right, stay with us. If you've been watching I'm a Celeb, I know you're a big fan of the show. Apparently, a few of them were moved to tears. It's only day 2. Yeah. So we're going to have all the
these
juice.
are sad stories.
All the gossip. Oh, they're sad stories.
Yeah.
It's not like, the horrible conditions.
No,
there were some complaints about the toilet facilities.
No.
But it's not that. All right.
Definitely not.
Crimea River. Find out more. Why? In a moment.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Catherine Richards and Jake Singleton-Hill featured on the reality show Love is Blind.
Well, Catherine and Jake are joining us now in the studio for Saturday Morning Live. Thank you very much for joining us. And this is perhaps not the end result that people might have thought that they'd be seeing at this point, because you were both on the show, but you didn't fall in love in the pods, did you?
No, we didn't. I rejected him.
You guys look great together.
Yeah.
Very happy as well. It seemed like you guys were really strong, and it almost seemed like Freddie, after he admitted to you that he'd cheated in the past.
I actually respected the fact that he told me up front. I didn't even want to have that conversation, obviously. That was a conversation that we got told to talk about. And I respected his decision, but I think he felt that I was holding this grudge towards him that she really doesn't like, and which was not, and he knew this, because off camera we had many conversations where I was like, thank you for owning up, like, we can just move on from this. But if anything, I think he just felt guilty the whole entire time, and he put that on me, which is fine, but yeah, there's obviously a lot that people don't see.
So for viewers who don't know, Love is Blind is where you go and seek love and romance, but you don't see who you're speaking to, right?
No.
So, Jake, why did you go on the show?
My parents actually met in a very similar way. So my stepdad was texting my mum. He'd basically stolen the number off of a friend because the friend had met my mum in Blackpool, and they were texting for like 6 months. They'd never met. So that premise of how they got together and the marriage that they had was stunning. And to build a relationship not based on looks before you met, I just found that just incredible.
So do you believe in that concept? Is it lust or love at first sight?
It's weird.
It's a bit of both.
I think, it's definitely a bit of both. And I always say, as you get older, your looks will change, but your personality will stay the same.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm a Celebrity Get Me Out of Here, day 2. And last night, the celebrities getting used to life in the jungle. We saw Colin speak about the Wagatha Christie trial with Rebecca Vardy, and boxing champ Barry McGuigan talk about the tragic, awful death of his daughter, Danica.
Yeah, you were just saying you were at the funeral of that. I mean, it was serious matters, but he was moved to tears last night.
It made for emotional viewing. I think people see Barry as a Mr. Tough guy because he's been in boxing so far, and I don't think many viewers knew about the story of his daughter, Danica, who died in 2019. She had leukemia in childhood, made a bit of a recovery, but then she got diagnosed with bowel cancer and died within 5 weeks. So yesterday it was quite an emotional thing on camp, him talking about it, because someone asked him, do you still go to church? And he says, I haven't been to church since my daughter died.
Aww.
And, you know...
He was quite religious.
Yeah, I can imagine. And so most of the viewers and most of the people on camp were just left in tears, and he did receive that comfort. Colleen was also crying because she lost her sister back in 2014, her sister Rosie, who was only 13 years old. So it was a really emotional viewing last night. It was. But the entertainment factor did come from Colleen Rooney, which people have been waiting for her to talk about the Wagatha Christie scandal, which we kind of knew it was coming. And she said, you know what, I did not want to go to court. I felt quite ashamed that it got to that point where we are now having to bring this to court. So, but I think she's got a lot of support from her campmates. But as you can imagine, Rebecca Vardy is the I'm a Celeb columnist for The Sun, so she's also gaining from this as well.
Yeah.
Will it ever end, those two? It's mainly Rebecca, I think.
And outside that, there are a lot of people coming to the fore. Dean McCulloch being one. I didn't know a lot about Dean. But he's from Northern Ireland. He's very, very funny. He's very, very funny.
Do you only like him because he's from Northern Ireland,
Eamonn?
Eamonn?
Rebecca Vardy calls him a bore.
She called him a bore.
In her column today.
Actually, I think he's been quite entertaining, and I think he's been like a quite good sport. But because he's quite scared, like G.K. Barry of all the Bush Tucker trials, I can imagine a lot of viewers are going to be voting for them to do it. I think Dean is doing the next one, and I think it's a good introduction for him to the public because he's on Radio 1 and not many people knew about him.
There's that viral clip of G.K. Barry when she's with Anton Deck and she thinks she got a leech on her hand. And honestly, I could watch that on repeat. It makes me laugh.
It is
so
hilarious.
Much.
People are saying this for this series so far, the viewers have slumped by about 2 million viewers, but I think they've got a good batch of contestants there, and I think they are going to be quite entertaining. And I think I can't see anyone really coming to blows like it was last year. We had Nigel Farage. There was that.
But I always say, if they have everybody liking each other, it takes a lot of the drama away. But however, that's today's woke society. They will have everybody hugging and kissing.
Yeah, well, this is only day 2, so I think we've got another 2 weeks to go. So we can all, yes, there is.
Halfway through, so maybe there'll be some controversy. What's the rumours?
Maura Higgins from Love Island, but she's a safe bet. I wanted someone more punchier.
Yeah, OK.
Well, thank you,
would you like to predict a winner?
I think it's going to be Colleen.
Colleen,
yeah, definitely.
I think there's every chance to be Colleen or Barry.
Even if she loses, it looks like she's being paid 5 times anybody else.
Well, that's the thing. She's going to be the biggest winner financially.
Right, we've got to say goodbye, Steph. Thank you so much. Appreciate your take. Just a quick look to end the programme on all the snowy pictures coming in this morning because we've been inundated. These are Brian's. They're in Staffordshire. Thank you so much. That doesn't look too snowy, but it's a little bit sleety. Here's Janet with her image from Congleton. That's the real deal.
Very nice. Daryl sends us this from Worcestershire.
Oh, wow.
Very nice indeed.
And just a reminder, if you're setting out and about, obviously all the usual warnings regarding snow, but we're asking, make sure you take a photograph and send it in to us because it's always nice to mark the first snow of the season.
Very nice.
People a little bit Christmassy. Bev is out and about at this protest. We'll have full coverage on the channel throughout the day. Andrew's in the studio for Britain's Newsroom, and we'll be back bright and early from 6 o'clock tomorrow. So whatever you're doing, have a lovely snowy day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. For many of us, a distinctly wintry flavour to the weather this morning. There are ice and snow warnings in place. For quite a few of us, though, it will be a fine and sunny day, but don't expect any warmth. Sleet and snow has been crossing parts of the UK through the night, edging away from eastern areas this morning, but some pretty unpleasant conditions on some roads, and the snow showers continue to feed in through the day across northern Scotland. Staying a bit damp with outbreaks of rain across the southwest of England, but for many areas it'll brighten up with some sunshine, but that northerly wind bringing a real chill. Temperatures struggling at 3 or 4 degrees for many, and feeling even colder when you add on the strength of that wind, which will continue to bring snow showers in across northern Scotland. Significant accumulations of snow over the hills at lower levels, not huge amounts, but still some disruption is likely, with a few centimetres possible, and much more than that over the mountains. A few snow flurries may continue to edge into northern parts of Northern Ireland, so again potentially turning icy here as temperatures tumble. Generally a clear evening across much of Wales and the Midlands and southern England. Staying quite cloudy across the far southwest of England. Some rain showers coming in here, and then as we go through this evening and overnight, we'll see a few more of these showers coming down the eastern side of England. Again, a real mix of rain close to the coast, but some sleet and snow likely inland, particularly over hills. A few of those flurries coming into parts of Wales and Northern Ireland, so again could turn icy as temperatures tumble well below freezing in rural spots, and again feeling even colder on Wednesday with that brisk wind, bringing a few showers across eastern areas and some for Northern Ireland and Wales, and plenty more of those wintry showers keeping going into northern Scotland. Again, for a good chunk of the country though, it's a dry, fine, sunny day to come tomorrow, but it will again be on the cold side with temperatures really struggling. 7 or 8 in the southwest, but for many other areas 2 or 3.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Perth and Kinross, the A9 is blocked each way by an accident south of Ballynluig, causing queues. Buses replace trains between Halifax and Huddersfield because of poor weather conditions. Snow is affecting a number of roads too across parts of the north of England. The A628 Woodhead Pass is closed each way between Tintwistle and the Flouch Roundabout. The A57 Snake Pass is closed each way between the Ladybow Reservoir and Royal Oakin at Glossop. And the A537 Cat and Fiddle Road is closed each way between Macclesfield and the A54 at Buxton. In Staffordshire, the A50 is closed eastbound from the Blythe Bridge roundabout to Uttoxeter after an accident, with delays towards there and as you divert. And the M4 in Swansea is blocked eastbound by an accident at junction 47 west of Swansea, with queues from junction 48 at Llanelli. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
After the Hollywood ending that Wrexham Football Club have got, can Chorley FC benefit from a bit of the old celebrity magic dust?
I can't see why not. The guys have been down a few times now, and when they do come down, obviously they're bringing that with them. A little town like Chorley doesn't see much of the charts and big stars, so it's really nice to see them, and we always welcome them when they do come down.
And Mark, give us a flavour of the level of football. I understand you're in the National League North, right? That's 6 rungs down from the top flight. I mean, you're only just down the road from Manchester City, right? But I mean, give us a flavour of the two different worlds between your club and Man City.
Our players are all part-timers. So we've got kind of fitness coaches, we've got teachers, we've got all kinds of players who have full-time jobs alongside playing. Our average crowd is probably a tenth of what you get at Man City, probably even less than that. We get about 1,500 on a home game. The thing is, we know where we are, and we understand where we are, and we are a real community club. Tonight, I'm ready now. I'm off to Marine, so off over to Merseyside. Playing the likes of Liverpool and Everton over on Merseyside would be kind of a dream come true. But we know where we are. We would